Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Our program is about to begin. Please welcome Mirabella Brocate El-Bazzi of Semafor.
afternoon, everyone, and welcome to day one of Semafor World Economy. I'm Mirabella Brocate-Elbaz, Chief Brand and Strategy Officer of Semafor, and we are so delighted to welcome all of you. Semafor was launched 3 years ago at a time defined by accelerating complexity, eroding trust, and information overload. We set out to provide the antidote to that with fair-minded, intelligent, and global intelligence for the new world economy. Semafor World Economy brings our vision to life. It's now the largest gathering of global CEOs in America. This year, we'll convene more than 500 global CEOs, 25 G20 finance ministers and central bankers, over a quarter of the US Senate, and hundreds of top leaders across business and government across over 90 countries. The discussions you'll hear across this week are powered by our global newsroom, who have all gathered here from across our bureaus in Africa, Asia, Europe, and the Gulf. Our conversations will focus on helping leaders navigate today's extraordinary complexity by curating the richest insights, ideas, and perspectives on the new world economy. This afternoon's session, Rethinking Global Business, will examine all of the distinguishing factors that are separating the businesses who are ahead of the curve from those who are falling behind in an era of rapidly changing global commerce. I'd like to express our gratitude to Citadel Securities for being the title partner of Semafor World Economy and to Salesforce for their supporting partnership of this track. We're so grateful to their support in helping us create a space for independent, intelligent live journalism. And with that, let's get to the news.
Please welcome Patrick Pouyan of Total Energies and Tim McDonnell of Semafor.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. And I am so excited to be kicking this off. I cannot think of anyone who could be better to kick off the meeting today, who's at the absolute center of so much that's happening in energy markets and geopolitics. Patrick, thank you very much for joining us. I mean, so today, just as of a few hours ago, we have a U.S. blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. What do you expect to come out of that? Do you expect that to make the supply crunch worse? What are you expecting to see from that?
I mean, yes, it could, because normally the objective is to not allow Iranian crude oil to exit from the Gulf. So already, you know, what is blocked, I would say, inside the Gulf represent 20% of the crude oil which is internationally traded, 20% of what the refined products which are traded. The Iranian crude was not supposed to be traded, was going through, so it will add another, I would say, layer of less liquidity in the market. So that's why the market this morning went up by 10%, you know, which is what was expected. So, you know, it's until now, mostly Asia has been concerned by the lack of products and crude oil coming out of the Gulf, because we still rely on inventories in the Western world. We have more or less 3 months of inventories. Mm-hmm. But if this war and this blockade lasts more than 3 months, we'll begin to face some serious supply issues in some products like jet fuel. So planes will have to be rationed, or diesel, and of course LNG gas. LNG is less a problem here in the US because we produce a lot of gas. You have plenty of gas, so you are completely immune. Mm-hmm. And the high season for LNG is more summer in Asia and winter in Europe. So today we don't need that. But if it lasts, we have some serious impacts. On supply of energy, again, it's, I would say, almost a systemic risk. And then if energy, you know, energy leads to fertilizer. Fertilizer is food. Food is inflation. So you have a number of supply chains. So what I hope is that these negotiations, which have begun, which is the good news of the weekend, you cannot dream to have such a complex issue being solved in 21 hours. That's never happened. When you know what is an Iranian guy to negotiate, it takes time, you know, and even for both parties. But again, they are engaged. So I would say immediately prices are up, but let's be optimistic. We need to find a solution, which of course must absolutely preserve the Strait of Hormuz opening. There is no way to have any agreement if there is still this threat So we need to find a solution, which means that the Strait of Hormuz cannot remain in only one party, in the Iranian party. By the way, in terms of geography, there are two countries. One is Oman, one is Iran. So let's find a solution with the two parties.
Because people talk about, Iranians have been bringing up this idea of tolling. How concerning is that to you if there's not free navigation through the...
You pay a toll when you go to the Panama Channel, when you go through the Canal of Suez. So why not? It's not a tolling. By the way, what they're asking is around $1 per barrel. But the problem is not to pay on one. The real problem is the freight. Because the threat that it could be blocked again is just not possible, because that means that if tomorrow all traders want to buy crude oil from the Gulf countries, they will put a huge risk premium, So we need to absolutely find, I don't know, it's international status, but to come back to, normally it's, you cannot put a toll on free waters, it's territorial international waters. So if it has to be regulated, it cannot be done by one country only, but by another way. So it's quite the first time we face that situation, but it's clear that the reopening and the free circulation through the Strait of Hormuz, even if you have to pay to anybody, is fundamental for this for the freedom of market and global markets. And you don't have only because, be careful, you have the Strait of Hormuz, you have another strait in the planet which is complex, the Strait of Malacca, So it should not give ideas to many people. So we must solve this issue in respecting the international rule of law. And this one cannot be in the hand of one country only.
Yeah. Can you say a bit more about the timeline that you're looking at if there's not a quick resolution to opening? When do you really see that cliff coming? And also backstage, we were speaking a bit about damage to refinery infrastructure.
And again, in fact, there are two elements, a question to answer. At this stage, the only damage, which is big, is the free circulation for the Strait of Hormuz. So if you reopen the Strait of Hormuz, the facilities, the oil production facilities, have not been damaged at this stage. They are still there. Some refineries have been damaged in Saudi Arabia, one of us, 2 trains of LNG, but it's minimum. But until now, the two camps have avoided to destroy production facilities, which is essential, because if you reopen, that means that you can restart your production quite easily, and I would say in 3 months, the things will come back to normality. Mm-hmm. Of course, if the war lasts, and if you have a new phase where the US attacks some energy production facilities in Iran, and Iran reacts by destroying some production facilities in the Gulf, then you change the magnitude of the problem. Because when you destroy facilities is not a question of months, it's a question of years. Mm-hmm. And you have, again, 20% of the world oil production is produced there. So in the worst scenario where you would destroy all that, and the Iranians will not hesitate if they feel completely, it's a question of survival. And they are ready, and they have sent a very clear signal. Each time you attack us, we react. So there is a graduation in their answers, because I think they don't want the US and Israel to destroy their own facilities. Right. But if they are forced, they will do it. Then the problem becomes even worse and could last years, which, again, 20% of the world, making this energy system of the world running without 20% of oil production doesn't work.
Right.
And it's not only oil, it's also fertilizers, it's also plenty of supply chains which we use hydrocarbons.
You mentioned also the Strait of Malacca and the other these key energy choke points. There's a few of them around the world. I mean, what do you take away from this moment in the Strait of Hormuz? What's the lesson about how we avoid getting into this situation with choke points to begin with? What's the solution to that longer term?
2 immediate lessons. We are stupid in our industry, We spend billions. We have made plenty of cartography, of risk cartography. We put Strait of Hormuz closure. None of us have built enough pipeline capacity to avoid it. I mean, sometimes because I think none of us were thinking it was possible.
This could happen, yeah.
It could happen. But now it's reality. So obviously, the immediate work, even if it takes 2-3 years, will be to build enough pipelines. It's not only one, it's a network of pipelines to exit from the worst of Hormuz. From Abu Dhabi down to Oman, through Saudi Arabia, through Jordan, through Syria. You need to build. That's obvious. The second lesson, which has not well commented today, is the way they managed to control the Strait of Hormuz. In fact, what happened the first weekend, they sent 3-4 drones which have hit some oil tankers. And then the insurance companies of the world, of our insurance company, declared there was no more insurance valid to go through the Strait of Hormuz. And in fact, we blocked ourselves the circulations because no more insurance, a threat. The oil tankers just stopped after a few days. This wasn't the Iranians by, I would say, military block. It was our system. So there is obviously something to rethink, which is how do we have an international insurance system which will allow, in case of conflicts, these tankers, and not only are the LNG tankers, to continue to flow, which is, by the way, the problem. Even if you reopen quickly, there was a discussion to reopen the Strait of Hormuz this weekend. Okay, but we insure what? Just the value of an oil tanker when it's full is $250 million. The vessel plus the crude on it. So this is a real matter. This is the second lesson. So the third lesson that you can draw more in a global way, in fact, what is remarkable, our energy system today is in real tension. We have no spare capacity. So when you disrupt, and there it's a heavy disruption, like when we disrupted the gas from Russia to Europe, you disrupt the oil from the Middle East, you don't have any spare capacity. And so the question we should all ask ourselves, how do we build more capacities of production, of energy? And by the way, it's not only a matter of supply and security of supply, it's also a matter of affordability. Mm-hmm. There are only two examples today, good examples, by the way, where you see no impact of the crisis. One is the natural gas in the US. Domestic gas price remains at the same level, $3.5 per million BTU, $20 per barrel. Why? Because you have plenty of overcapacities of production, associated gas to shale oil, enough pipelines to evacuate it. So overcapacities means security and affordability. And the second example is France with electricity. Zero impact on the crisis on the electricity French price. Why? Because we have overcapacities of nuclear and renewables.
I was going to ask.
So somebody has to pay for the overcapacity, but this is a good lesson.
I was going to ask if renewables is part of the solution to this lack of capacity.
Yes, it is. It's obvious. By the way, it's obvious to me that the consequence of this crisis is that the countries will look to domestic solutions. It could be coal if you have, but obviously renewables is a domestic solution. You need to have the land. It's not perfect. It's intermittent, but I'm sure this crisis will push for renewables. Mm-hmm. And again, by the way, I'm pushing myself for all of the above, and really all of the above. It's not selecting one of them. In fact, we need to produce more capacity. So I think this crisis, by the way, but the crisis is also good. In many Asian countries, you will be them shifting from LNG, gas, which is too expensive, to coal. So it's not perfect from climate point of view. It's not perfect, but this is a reality. So one of the lessons is that you need to build much more capacities and renewables, onshore solar, onshore wind with batteries. It is today we are able to produce, I would say, affordable energy with these solutions today.
Total is the biggest exporter of LNG in the U.S., and I just visited the other week your Cameron LNG facility after CERAWeek. Very, very amazing tour to go on. Is this a great moment? I mean, this seems like kind of a great moment for U.S. LNG to step in here, or is it actually just this sort of moment of liability and unpredictability that makes it very difficult to navigate? Or as an LNG exporter, how do you look?
LNG in the U.S. is very good. We are the largest. We were in 25 the number one exporter of U.S. LNG, 20%, a lot to Europe. It's obvious because you have plenty of natural gas, so cheap feedstock. Your government is giving a lot of permitting. So, and again, by the way, it's good because even if we had a blockade on Qatar, which is longer, U.S. LNG will find its way. So, again, but diversification, I would say the other lesson. It's not only having the U.S. being dominant like Russia was. No, I should not say that because energy dominance is part of the agenda. But again, a lesson for any country is also to diversify your source of energy. Total Energies, we are the number 3 in the world. We did not declare any force majeure to any of our customers despite we lost the supply from Qatar. Because we are producing LNG in 11 different locations. And so we are securing our customers by, we are losing the supply from Qatar, but we can provide it from some other places. So the other big lesson is the diversification of energy sources, in particular when you are importing.
And from the point of view of the U.S., to your point earlier about gas, the natural gas price here staying steady, is that a sign that energy dominance, as we talk about it here in D.C., is working?
it's the fact that you have huge gas resources, that you're investing enough to produce it,
Right.
and that there is no impact. There was some theory that the more you export, the more you will push the price up. Mm-hmm. This is not what is happening today. So why? Because not only you have the resource, but also you are building all the pipelines from the Permian to the Gulf Coast. So I encourage everybody to think, to observe what happens. You are really investing to have a very overcapacity in that system. Of course, for gas producers, it's not too good to see $3 box per dollar BTU. So they're not so happy. But if there is a good strategy, which is to use your gas to put part in LNG, international markets will give you some reward. This is exactly what we do. Right. We like LNG because it's a way to add value to our gas in the US. Or we like also, by the way, gas-fired power plants. We invest in electricity in the US because of data centers, etc. So you can add value to your gas, natural gas, even if it's cheap, by transforming it in electrons for data center, Google's, Amazon, and others.
Right. Part of the strategy behind Venezuela, we were speaking about this backstage, and also Iran, is maybe to create an opening in the future for more investment from Western energy companies. Is there a world where Total could be invested in Iran again?
It's easier to invest in the US. Because there is one thing which is fundamental to our business. It's medium and long term. We invest for 20, 25 years. And so in these two countries, we had some old experience, which has not been super good. We lost some money in Venezuela. And so the question for us is, are we convinced that Venezuela's stability is not only granted by the Trump administration for 3 years, but for more than that? Are we convinced that the legal framework which is put in place will go through change of regime? And it will be the same story for Iran. So Total Energies is well known as not so risk adverse. We are investing in Iraq. We are the number one in the Middle East. But we have some certain rule. One of rule is, okay, let's find we need to have an economic framework, an ecosystem in a country where we are feeling comfortable, because the billions we will invest should deliver money during 20 years. So it will take time before I'm rushing to Venezuela or Iran.
Yeah, great. We'll be watching that.
But it's good for the US. I'm rushing here, so it's not bad.
No. Yeah, of course. That makes a lot of sense. Great. We'll be watching that very closely. Patrick Pouyanné from Total, thank you so much for your time. It's great being here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Please welcome Ted Leonsis of Monumental Sports and Entertainment, Mark Ein of Capital Investment Corp, and Phil Mattingly of CNN.
I'm going to be honest with you guys. Listening to the two of them talk backstage, it became very clear I have no role here whatsoever. But I will say, as somebody who spends his days covering financial markets and in his personal life is also a practicing Catholic, this panel being about sports, Washington, D.C., and development is a wonderful remove from the current news events, but it's also extraordinarily important. Mark Ein, Ted Leonsis, two people who have been at the center of kind of this new phase of Washington's economic growth, obviously in the sports world, but just the city's development, redevelopment on some level, all at the same time, but also have been here for previous iterations as well. And I kind of want to dig in on what you're seeing. And Ted, I want to start with you. You know, you're rethinking Capital One Arena. It's more than just a venue. It's part of a broader kind of year-round destination. What gave you confidence that this is the moment in this city to push forward with that plan?
I would say that I don't have all that much confidence. We have to continue to every day kind of stay hungry and stay humble, because we're in a big, big turnaround situation. The city's really, really struggling, and it continues to struggle. And we're going to invest with the city about $1 billion. And we want to make a new and vibrant and growing downtown, because just look at, you bought out this venue. It's the most important city in the world. We have to really have the best infrastructure. We have to have the most iconic real estate. We have to have the best sports teams, and these icons for the community, like our arenas, like our stadiums, are incredibly important. We convene 3 million people a year come into the city. And it's not just from Washington, D.C. Our market goes from Richmond, Virginia, all the way to Delaware. And so that media market, that 10 million person media market, is one of the foremost important and powerful in the country, and one of the top 10 around the world. And so it starts with your downtown. It connects all of the universities that are here. And so we've got a lot of work to do, and I never take a day for granted that we have to keep investing, keep innovating to make Washington, D.C. a great city.
Mark, pick up on that. Obviously, with the Commander Stadium coming to town, you obviously have the D.C. Open, which has become kind of a focal point of kind of the D.C. cultural summer zeitgeist at this point in time. What's the investment case that you make as you think through this process?
Yeah, well, I mean, Ted gave you all the high-level reasons Washington's one of the most important cities in the world, and economically, it's an incredible population here. I mean, it's a highly affluent, highly educated community, so the people here are great. But you were talking about Ted and I backstage. Ted and I have been friends for like 35 years. I met Ted when he was running a piece of AOL, and I tried to see if we could spin it out and send it to a separate company, and then have followed Ted. And Ted's been a great role model for a lot of us in sports in Washington, not just what he's done, but how he's done it. But Ted and I also met in the late 90s, where we were talking about diversifying the Washington economy away from government into tech. And we would have all these meetings of leaders in both regionally and nationally to talk about how do you bring tech companies into Washington. I planted a flag and ran an incubator here for over a decade, right down the street from Ted's arena. And, that didn't work as much. There was Living Social, a couple companies. Unfortunately, a lot of companies would get started here, and then as soon as they became successful, they'd move out to Virginia. But today, it's more important than ever, because obviously we all know what's going on in the federal government. And I think this mayor has done a really smart job in saying, I need to diversify our economy into something for the coming decades. And she's identified entertainment and tourism, sports and entertainment, which plays off one of Washington's greatest strengths, which is a tourism hub for the world. And so every venue in town, including Capital One, Nationals, Audi Field, my tennis venue, and now the building of RFK, is having a reinvestment or a new build. And so there's a massive investment in this, because I think the mayor has said, rightfully, I need to reposition Washington, and we need to double down on what we're good at, which is tourism and entertainment. And so this will be the nation's capital forever. It'll be the nation's capital of the world's most important country. There's so many great things about this city. We are definitely going through a bit of a challenging time, but I actually think all these investments are going to continue to pay off. I think there's a ton of upside still in tourism and entertainment, and it will be a huge driver of the city for a long time.
And we need to innovate. So we announced a couple of weeks ago with the White House, with Penske, with the Department of Transportation in August, which not a lot of people are here in August, but we have to support the local economy, and it's the 250th birthday for the country, that we will do a IndyCar race. And it was really amazing to see the city, the government, Department of Transportation, Doug Burgum, Department of Interior all come together, and we're going to bring in anywhere from 250,000 people to 1 million people. And just like they have a Formula One race in Vegas or in Monaco, we'll have that in Washington, D.C.
Can I ask you, how quickly did that come together? Because it seemed to come out of nowhere. And then all of a sudden you signed on and it was done.
Yeah, it was a great idea. And we had to, because Washington, D.C. doesn't really exist, right? We're not a state, and streets here are either owned by the city or owned by the federal government. And so we literally had to map out what percentage of the race would be on federal land versus on city land. The mayor really wanted this. The White House really wanted this. We went to Congress, and it was, you don't even have to tell us what this is. The answer is no. Right. And so we had to remeasure to make sure that it was more on city streets. But it'll be a great thing in August, all downtown. It'll be 2 days on Fox. The first day will be really a celebration of the technology. We're going to have, just like we do at the NBA, a tech summit. We'll have a tech summit around automotive. It's really should be a kickoff. And I say, well, why do we have to do it just for 1 year? Let's do it every year. Secondly, I'd say that Washington, D.C. needs to reward itself for its gifts. When I came to Washington, D.C. as a student at Georgetown, it was the first class of graduating women from Georgetown University, founded in 1789, and Title IX was created, all in the same year, in the early 70s here. And we should make Washington, D.C. the women's capital of sports. We're the second longest tenured WNBA team owner. WNBA, it's taken a long time. I have to leave right after this to go to New York because the WNBA draft is this evening. We approved 3 new expansion teams last week. WNBA teams now are going $300, $400 million. We've arrived. Women's soccer, we have Michelle Kang, has a great franchise here. We conducted a game for the Professional Women's Hockey League. I want to bring women's hockey to here, all of the colleges and universities because of Title IX, very, very strong. Mark's been an unbelievable advocate. I'll let him talk about in tennis. We ought to rally around and make this the professional women's sports capital of the universe, and that's only good for the city, only good for the universities, only good for the community.
Just for the record, I'm not skirting asking the important question here, who will be the picks? You have 3 in the first round today. I was told there would be no comment on those. I'm still working my sources to see what I can get. Mark, as you think through this, you mentioned the kind of phases, particularly on the entrepreneurial side, on the innovation side. Why is this moment different than maybe what didn't work a decade or 2 ago through those phases? And how do you integrate technological advances into the experience for fans as they're attending events?
Well, first of all, we were talking about D.C. itself. Regionally, the region has continued to thrive in terms of new business creation, but even more new business attraction. People forget that Amazon did the biggest corporate relocation search in history and basically picked New York and here, and it ended up really being here. So there was the most sophisticated, comprehensive search ever done, and they located here. So regionally, we've done okay. It's like, what do we do in D.C.? I could give you all the reasons. I think D.C. never emerged as a tech hub. I think there's a bunch of structural reasons, even though despite a lot of good efforts. But I do think, as Ted said, the sports thing is definitely really talked about the race, which I think is going to be great. Next year, we're hosting the NFL draft, which should get 1 million people on the mall, which will be incredible. The draft, the backdrop will be the Capitol. With our new stadium, and again, I'm giving the mayor a ton of credit. She, as part of the deal, insisted that we would put a roof. We probably would have, but it wasn't 100%. But because she wanted it to be a magnet for Super Bowls, NBA championships, all kinds of stuff that'll come. And I think the reason it's going to work is because of the investment that everyone's making, the investment Ted's making his building, the investment we're making, the investment the Nats are making out of field. The other thing about D.C. is there's this argument out there, do sports stadiums, are they worth the investments municipalities make? In Washington, D.C., we're 100%. So if you went down where Capital One was, I used to live there. When I first moved back here to work at Carlisle, I lived there, and it was a red light district. That was what it was, with abandoned buildings and everything. Cap 1 gets built, and the east end of Washington thrives. Then gnats go down to an industrial part of town, and obviously you can see it thrives. Then I actually own the land under Howdy Field, and I thought I would be there for 30 years before something happened. They built the soccer stadium, and Buzzards Point is thriving. And now RFK is going to anchor a 180-acre development there. So we're 4 for 4, and we're going to be 5 for 5 on this, and then we're going to do something at our tennis stadium. And so I just think this investment, we have a track record of doing these things successfully. And then again, you have the engine that even though it's less, it is always going to be the nation's capital of the most important country in the world. And you put all that together, and I think there's a really bull case for what.
Yeah, we have, it's the most wired city. We have the most PhDs. It's the smartest city, and esports is going to be important. Mark's dabbled in it. We are very, very serious about esports and multi-user gaming. Again, there should be a capital for that. What defines these next generation great cities is the universities, the IP. We have 12 research-based universities right here. We need to celebrate and bring in these universities more as a part of the ecosystem for the business, for the political area. You know, right now, the average lifespan of a CEO of a university is 4 years. Okay, they're like one-term governors in Virginia. And you know, we have to do some longer-term planning now to make sure that we're connecting all of the dots. Academia is such an important role, the local government, the federal government, the business community. I created the Greater Washington Partnership, which helped to drive and bring in the Amazon here. And our position to Jeff Bezos was, when one wins, we all win. It doesn't matter if you pick DC, Virginia, or Maryland, because people are going to send their kids to school, they're going to get real estate, they're going to dine, they're going to... we have to really think of regionalism as being really, really important. But Mark's exactly right. If we don't have a thriving metro area, a thriving downtown, none of this happens. And you know, I just look at it and I hear Semafor took all this hotel for the day. We're making this Davos. Well, like, how did Davos even get into the conversation? Of course it should be here. It's the smartest people, the most powerful people. We're still certainly the country with the most influence and the most money to make smart investments. And so, you know, it's almost a social responsibility that we all have to make sure that DC is thriving.
And it's nice.
Can I just one thing I just want to add, because Ted touched on, you all says, why am I optimistic? I also think in the culture of the business community in this town, in this region, is collaboration and cooperation. And, you know, I chose to come back here after living in a lot of places. And when I talk to my friends in business communities in other cities, the level of pulling for each other and helping each other, I think, is unparalleled. And I think that actually leads to real results. When I look at the RFK process, which came to Washington, we had to get the Maryland senators and governors, we had to get the Virginia senators and governors, and the mayor and the federal government all together, and it happened. It's one of the, not yet, but will be eventually, best told stories about how the region comes together. And then Ted just backstage said, you know, everyone thinks we should be competitive, but we're not. Like, and we really help each other. Like, I mean, I love Ted as a friend, but also just business-wise, all the local sports owners help each other. We really do. We don't view each other as competitors. We view it that if one wins, we all win.
Yeah, it makes for a less appealing panel that you don't hate each other.
And we all dress. We
also all wear matching ties. This was not planned.
Exactly.
It's just brilliance personified. Can I ask local media? And I know this is, you obviously own a Washington City paper. The Washington Post hollowing out its sports section. Is that an opportunity for you, Mark? And then Ted, just your kind of view of what that means given your ownership of teams.
Well, I'm chairman and continue to be chairman of the NBA and NHL media committee. My son's on the WNBA media committee. We saw early on what was happening. We also saw the power of sports media. We're the only AI-proof industry right now. And so we've obviously gone way up in value. Our ratings for all of the leagues, and I think we have 98 of the top 100 rated shows, and we can convene in our building, 20,000 people, and hundreds of thousands of millions of people convening through streaming on terrestrial and the like. So I saw early on that the cable companies, which had their day, I invented dial-up, right, at AOL. That's kind of what cable was. You could see the iceberg melting. And I said, they don't care about this. And so we bought our network 3 or 4 years ago. And thank goodness we did, because we don't look at it as a regional sports network. We look at it as a way that we can take our IP and stream it. And we've now built, I think, the largest database of customers, and we can take all sorts of programming to get it to them. And we're very, very unique. We're on our way to $1 billion in revenue. We own the venues, we own the teams, we own the distribution channels, and we want to make sure that these 5 million patrons, that's what I'm going to call them now after watching the Masters. You don't want to call them fans. The root of the word fan is fanatic. They're patrons. We want to love the fans, and so we need to know more about them. We need to use data. We need to use all of the power of AI to anticipate what do they want, what makes them happy, how will they come back to games. And so I think sports is becoming a launch pad for lots of innovations in tech, and it's such a consumer-based, future-proof kind of industry that, again, we have this responsibility to do the right thing in the right way for our fans, but it's also propelling our business to grow and be very, very valuable.
Last 30 seconds.
Yeah, I mean...
How are my people going to report the really hard stories on his distribution?
Yeah, I know. I think it's really unfortunate. I mean, I saved the City paper. They came to me. It was going to go out of business. I believe journalists were doing really important work in the world. It's important whether it's sports or Metro or any foreign affairs. It's important to have strong independent journalism. It's what I did. I sometimes joke that if I write my autobiography, it will be my adventures in journalism, no good deed goes unpunished. but I still am trying to figure out how we can be productively helping fill that gap, because it does matter.
Mark Ein, Ted Leonsis, really appreciate you guys. Thank you very much.
Welcome Kristin Peck of Zoetis, Anne Wojcicki of 23 and Me Research Institute, and Ben Smith of Semafor.
Wow. Well, thank you for joining us. And I thought I would start a little with, these are two companies actually with quite unusual origin stories. And if you don't mind, to cut right to the chase with yours, which is, you're about a year out from the bankruptcy of the for-profit 23andMe. And I guess I just want to hear a little about that experience, and also kind of what should people take away from that experience about, is genomics a for-profit business, about the possibilities of investing in this?
Yeah, I mean, look,
Welcome.
Thank you, thanks. Let's jump right in, people. I would say bankruptcy is an experience everyone should try to avoid. It was, and I think it was particularly hard for us. I think that the public response was surprising, and in many ways surprising because there was other companies in the genetics space that had also gone through a restructuring, and we got a really unusual amount of press around it. I think the thing that people don't realize on 23andMe is that it wasn't just a genetics company. We'd really, from day one, had started out as a data company focused on research. So in 2009, we'd actually launched the ability to collect data through surveys and through medical records. And from day one, we've been incredibly structured with how we can actually do large-scale research. And we really wanted to be the company that was leading the genomics revolution with respect to discoveries and then getting those discoveries back in the hands of people. And so for that reason, we always focus on having a low margin, high volume product because we wanted to be able to make everyone accessible to genetic data and we wanted to make those discoveries. So I think that the takeaway is like I think we overexpanded when we were getting into therapeutics. Like we really focused on that translation of all that data into something that is going to be quite practical for people, which was therapeutics. I think we overexpanded on that. And I would say the litigation around the security incident obviously was ultimately the cause of having to do a restructuring.
Kristen, we were talking backstage because this is this moment of like very intense and interesting innovation. I actually want to get to your lab's breakthrough next, but in driven by AI, but in all sorts of pharmaceutical research. And we were talking backstage about like, wouldn't it be great if you could just start with animals? That must be super easy and very fast, and you can just teach dogs to talk and fix them, and no approvals, none of this regulatory stuff. I guess that's not actually the situation. But I am curious how this very intense, interesting technological moment is affecting what you guys do.
Sure. I mean, Zoetis is the world's leader in animal health, and we are really across the continuum of care. So we are in the genomic side and the genetic side. We're in diagnostics. We're in prevention with vaccines. And we're obviously in the therapeutic side. And that really gives us a unique lens as you think about the opportunity for AI. And we really see AI as a multiplying force that helps amplify what our existing scientists and veterinarians and team members can do. Because as you think about the data sets that we have across all those, we can innovate even faster. We can, in discovery, pick a target faster. In research, pick the molecule that's going to be most effective. We are a little faster than the human health space because we go in our primary species first.
I never heard that before, primary species.
Yes, well, we're pretty much all species but humans is what I would say at Zoetis. So we really see this as an opportunity to be a game changer, not just in better predicting disease, but for pets, we can personalize the care to the specific pet. And as you think about livestock, you can really think of herd health at scale. You're getting thousands, they'll do genetic tests on, say, like dairy cattle, and better be able to predict which animals will breed better, which animals will be healthier, and that creates for a safer, affordable food supply. So that's really what brings it all together.
I was talking recently to somebody at the top of one of the AI labs who was saying that their political problem with AI is that the big promise of AI is to put you out of a job and to drive your kids crazy, and those aren't like very politically appealing, and that they need a win. And they were talking about healthcare, but approvals are so slow, and there is this kind of revolutionary potential. I mean, if animal medicine is moving faster, like, is there something you think that like will be the thing where like every American is like, this is amazing, this is the thing, this is something concrete? Is there something you're particularly excited about?
As you think about it, it's not Gen AI, but it's AI. We're there today. You can bring your pet to the vet today, and there's a mass. And while you're at that visit, they can take a sample, they can put it on our Imagist machine, and within 40 minutes be able to tell you if your dog has cancer in the same appointment. Wouldn't you all love to be able to do that as humans? So I think the future is here in animal health as you think about some of the diagnostic AI tools that we're able to provide. And I don't think, back to my point on amplifying really and being a multiplying force, you're still seeing the vet. And not only that, with our technology, you get a human pathologist who specializes in that area on the phone to advise you. So we really see the human in the center of it, and it's a way to really amplify the potential of a local vet, because specialists are hard to find. So I think that future is here as you think about animals.
I'm excited to talk to my dogs about this. You're scientists recently, and you are now in this very intense research mode, and you recently, this is actually also very personal to me, published a study in Nature showing that people with different genetic profiles respond differently to GLP-1s. I'm sad to say I've got the wrong profile, apparently.
Yeah.
That's what I had in mind. But I guess I'm curious, like, where does that research point?
The GLP-1?
Yeah, the GLP-1 breakthrough. And tell us a little more about that.
The GLP-1 is I think, is a great showcase of actually what the potential of 23andMe and what we've actually tried to do. You talk about research, and research we all know is like, it's super expensive. You have to go to academic centers. You have to find investigators. You have to recruit people. It takes years. Like, we have a question out there. It takes years and millions of dollars. Like, you just can look at the NIH budget. it's wildly expensive. And so the core premise of 23andMe was just have a massive, ongoing, never-ending research cohort where you can ask all kinds of questions. So for instance, we don't just recruit people with Parkinson's disease and then only ask them about Parkinson's. Every single person in this room could contribute to research. And probably almost the majority of you have never participated in research. And so the idea of 23andMe was democratize the ability for every single person to participate. Everyone can say something. If you've been pregnant, if you take thyroid, if you've had a knee injury, like every single thing out there. And so particularly on medications. So we ask people all kinds of questions, and it could be anything about your medication response. It could be, do you sneeze when you see sunlight? What kinds of, have you had cancer? We ask all kinds of questions. And because we have all this data and we have 13 million people participating, you can do research almost like it's a Google query. You just run an analysis. And so what we did is when we saw how GLP-1s were taking off and it was extraordinary, and I think they are extraordinary medications, the question is why is there such a variability of response? So some people lose no weight and some people can lose 20% of their body weight. Some people have totally debilitating side effects and some people don't. So usually there's genetics involved. And that's where pharmacogenetics is so fascinating and it's almost never adopted. And so pharmacogenetics is really why some people respond and other people don't respond. So about 18 months ago, we launched this survey, a GLP-1 survey to our 13 million customers. We asked them to self-report data, and self-report is an extraordinary way of collecting information. It took us about 7 months then to do that analysis. And 18 months later, we were able to actually publish this in Nature and actually create an interactive tool for all of our customers where you look at your genetics, you look at your health history, you answer other questions, and we give you an interactive tool that's going to help predict whether or not you will lose weight and how much weight, and then whether or not you're likely to have side effects.
How far are we from that kind of loop, which is kind of informal and consumery on your website and not in my nurse practitioner doesn't mention that. How far are we from that kind of loop being in the actual practice of medicine in the U.S. on a mass scale?
I mean, I think this is where 23andMe is really unique. People always ask me, do you have competitors? And we don't. And part of the reason why we repositioned ourselves as a nonprofit is specifically to really dig in and really emphasize that flywheel, that loop. So how is it that I can engage the entire global population with all the questions that we have about health? And then how do I make those discoveries, make them broadly accessible to the entire research community, and then get them back to people? And so the key element with 23andMe is that we ask you questions, and then we give you those answers back in the terms of reports. So we have a number of reports, a bunch of, for instance, polygenic risk scores, where we've made research discoveries about conditions like breast cancer, your risk factor for breast cancer, and we give those back to our customers. So I think I would say, again, the world is here. 23andMe, particularly now as a nonprofit, is really focused on democratizing access to the data and accelerating research everywhere. And then as people are participants within 23andMe, you get all that information back. I would say the slowest part is the physician adoption and getting that into care, but that's also going to dramatically change with AI. Lots of people now are looking at, mammograms. There was an article the other day about mammograms and how much you have to have AI looking at your mammogram. So AI is absolutely going to go and start to look at the latest research, the latest data, your genetic data, your wearables, your medical records, all of that, and will keep you up to date better than what we're getting today.
Kristen, 2 questions. First, GLP-1s for dogs and cats?
What I always say, obesity is a major issue in pets. 60% of pets are obese. I'm not sure the side effects of GLP-1s. You'd be okay with your dog. Yeah, that would say probably not. So we think there's probably other
exercise,
other
diet.
modalities we're going to focus on that one. But.
And then more seriously, we're in the Washington of Robert F. Kennedy and Make America Healthy Again, and this, I think a lot of different currents. There are sort of unorthodox treatments and a rejection of medical orthodoxy. There's also a lot of frustration with how slow approvals are. I think people don't realize how heavily regulated veterinary medicine is as well. And you had this experience with Librela in, I guess, 24, where the FDA really kind of came down hard on one of your products. I mean, how How is this administration and the changes to this administration shaping your business or affecting it?
Yeah, I mean, animal health is actually more regulated. We have more regulators around the globe. In the U.S., we're regulated by the FDA, the USDA, and the EPA, depending on the product. And the same manufacturing requirements are present for animal health, as it should be. As you think about it, if you think about the protein that you eat, whether you put milk in your coffee this morning, had bacon and eggs at your breakfast, that has to be safe. And so we're grateful that we have the same level of regulation. I think public trust, which I think is a lot where the debate is today, is incredibly important. People have to trust in the food supply around the globe and in the health of their companions. So we don't mind being a heavily regulated company. I think it's really, really important. I think where the conversation is moving and where we're focused on working with the FDA and Dr. Shell, is how do we think about the new technologies that are coming, and how do we create regulatory authorities across the globe that are going to embrace some of the things that we're talking about? You know, we have a lot of AI information about who will respond best, for example. We have some of the largest dermatology products, Cytopoint. We're expecting approval of Cytopoint long-acting, which is a monoclonal antibody at 3 months. We can actually tell you who's more likely to do well on this product, which dogs. But we actually can't market that today, very similar to what you're seeing in human health. And so what we're trying to understand is how can we expedite the insights that we have on our products? And again, because as you think even in livestock, herd health, these are huge insights. So you think about salmon, we can predict an outbreak of pancreas disease in salmon with a 94% accuracy 8 weeks before they could confirm it. And that's the difference. That 8 weeks is everything if you are a salmon producer between protecting your harvest and losing it. We've got to be able to more and more be able to market these products on these. But I think the same way in humans, what she's saying, the ability to have these insights, but actually to share them and to leverage them into better labels and better understanding for the broader public is what we're really focused on as we think about working with this administration and across the globe, honestly.
And how are you seeing, I guess, these sort of dueling impulses in this administration, one between kind of keeping unnatural things out of animals and people, and the other getting rid of bureaucracy? Like, which of those is winning in your space?
We really focus on working directly with our regulators. We've had
rather than trashing them to journalists. Is that
no? I mean, I think, by the way, the opportunity
somehow a lot of people have that. Really.
I mean, the one thing I will say is there's been a willingness in this administration to really think about the art of the possible. We've had much more productive conversations about what does the future look like with the FDA. There is an anti-science sense right now that is concerning that we're certainly talking about. But at the same point, I have certainly found in our conversations, this administration and around the globe really trying to work with us to find ways to improve the regulatory process. So that's really where we've been.
They're pretty engaged with industry.
Very engaged.
Yeah. I guess same question to you. How is you're in this sort of frontier part of science, and there are these two dueling, and maybe not take it. Sorry, I don't mean to try to drag you into the administration stuff entirely, but just in politics right now broadly, there are these two very different impulses, one to move faster and deregulate, the other to keep all this weird stuff out. How are you navigating that?
So 23andMe, I mean, we've spent a lot of time in DC, not always willingly. We are a regulated product. In 2013, we got a warning letter, so we had to come through the FDA. And I have to say, I think that it's been, it was a great, it definitely elevated the standard of the product. I think it was a really, it was a good experience. But as of today, I think a lot of aspects of the regulation hold us back. And I see, there's people on X, for instance, saying, I get my 23andMe results, I upload it, and I can get all this other information.
Should we do that?
And so, should you do
Grok?
that? I mean, look, I think from it's interesting.
Have you done that?
Well, have I done that?
With your own results?
Yeah, of course.
And what did you find?
Well,
sorry, HIPAA exclusion.
Look, it's always interesting. I think the issue that happens that 23andMe, the layer that 23andMe brings is data quality. And I know that the variant I'm telling you about has actually met our analytical bar. And so when you look online, the people who've complained about different things is there was, AI told me that I potentially have a BRCA variant for breast cancer. those are ones that we wouldn't have called. Like they don't call accurately based on the chip. And so that's just like a normal part of the chip. So we would never return that to our customers. So AI is, they're not meeting they don't have the raw data on the analytical. So they can't necessarily do that. So I think it's a reality is like people are out there. I'm eager to see how the regulatory landscape comes because right now it's exciting. Like there's all kinds of things you can do. Even just in the green room, we were talking to someone who's like, oh yeah, I pull this from my CGM, I pull that from my Oura Ring, I pull my genetics, and then I get a daily insight. Like, what should I be doing? Like, is that regulated? So I think that we've taken the approach is, again, we've always focused, like, there's nothing worse than telling someone the wrong results. So your diagnostics have to be accurate. Like, that is paramount. Like, if you're telling someone they're high risk for breast cancer, you're telling someone they're high risk for, high cholesterol, like, that's paramount that it's accurate. That said, it is a wild west in terms of like what everyone is doing with their data. And I think there's a fine balance between making sure that we are letting people explore, we're embracing the accessibility, which I think is extraordinary right now. But we also will have to balance that with the safety. But I do think the accessibility that is happening right now is truly going to change healthcare going forward.
Do you see that, the kind of individuals racing ahead of the regulated products? I mean, there's this famous story of this Australian scientist who cured his dog's cancer with AI, according to the Australian media. But are you seeing that? Is that how do you navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a real challenge for vets. I mean, the really complicating part for dogs and cats is they don't speak. So it's a lot more guesswork, to be perfectly honest. You don't know. And so people will oftentimes arrive at the vet with, and so, which is why we actually think that diagnostics is arguably even more important in the vet space because it's sometimes hard to exactly tell what the course of it is. And so that's why we look at, the combination, to be honest, of genetics with our baseball products and diagnostics really being able to better predict. But people do try the same thing with their pets, just with a lot less information. Like my pet seems sad. I mean, is it in pain? I don't know.
That's complicated. We have 30 more seconds. I have one small final question for you. Testified on the Hill about China in your space. Is China winning? You got 25 seconds.
Oh, yeah, I think they are. I think that, listen, I've been coming onto the Hill and talking at various political meetings with different senators, with DOD, and essentially complaining for the last 15 years. Like, China is running. They're running super fast, and they don't have the same constraints. They have the Beijing Genome Institute. They have done extraordinary amount of work, and you just see everyone in the US now is working in China. They are sending products to be made there. They're in-licensing products, and I think that we're tripping over ourselves, and I think that we absolutely have to run, and I think that the US needs to put the money in to the whole industry, into genetics, into how we're going to speed up the phase 1 process, the development process, because China is clearly winning right now.
Okay, well, thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Welcome Paul Griggs from PwC and Shelley Banjo from Semafor.
Paul,
thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Shelley. It's great to be here.
We're excited to talk to you because you have this really unique viewpoint into corporate America. I think you look at about 82% of corporate America's books.
I'm surprised it's that small. If you think about the benefit of the work that we do, we are a product of the clients that we serve across industries, and the unique vantage point that professional services brings is just that. We see a lot of clients doing a lot of things across industries, and it allows us to see patterns and inflection points, and that's a direction driver in terms of the advice and the planning and the transformation work that we do.
So let's talk about AI. Obviously, a lot of CEOs have talked about how they're putting it to use, but you see those books. What percentages are actually getting ROI on that right now?
Well, it's interesting. We put out something today globally that talked about returns, and the reference was that if you looked at the leading adopters, and I'll call it the AI change agents, that 20% of the companies were seeing 80% of the returns. And I think that's a reasonable description, meaning that everyone has AI programs to some degree, but those that are leading are truly embedding AI into, I should say, re-engineering end-to-end product flows, end-to-end workflows. That helps to drive outcomes.
But 20%, that's pretty small, if you think about it.
20% back up. So 20% driving 80% of the returns. If you decompose returns between, we'll call it productivity and efficiency gains relative to revenue generation and outcomes on the top line, you see a lot of companies that are driving productivity improvement and being able to rip costs out of businesses. But it is those companies. Take as an example, retail organizations. Retail organizations sit on loads of information. Take individual products they sell, the SKUs that sit inside the warehouse that reflects every single asset in their inventory. What we see companies doing as an example today is you enrich that information. Through enriching that information across thousands, tens of thousands SKUs, you enable the discovery of that information through digital commerce. And through the discovery of that information through digital commerce, you promote the opportunity to distribute that product set more broadly across your ecosystem, which drives customer engagement, drives top-line growth. So you're seeing it both directions. Productivity improvements on the cost side, but equally revenue generation opportunities on the top line.
Let's talk about your business now. You have this huge business, 365,000 people. You recently caused a little bit of a stir, saying that partners who don't really go into AI are not wanted at this firm. There was a little bit of a fallout. What'd you learn from that fallout?
So what you're referencing, Shelley, for everyone listening, is the Financial Times picked up a headline where I was talking about our business, and the headline was something to the effect of you're either an AI first leader inside this firm, or you don't have a place here. I meant that. And my view is that AI has the unbelievable potential to take 175 years, the history of our firm, the knowledge and the wisdom that sits in the brains of smart people today, and as we take that knowledge, that experience, methodologies, know-how, context, and drop things into AI systems, we scale the knowledge and the wisdom and the opportunity that exists inside our firm to drive meaningful value across our client set. And so to me, there's not an opt-out option here. I mean, this is a I must be all in, because number one, I can't deliver the outcomes I should be able to deliver for my clients if I'm not. Two, my people are going to pass me by. And as a leader in the organization, which all partners are, you lead and others follow, and we need those partners to lead.
But I'm sure someone came up to you and said, do I not have a place here? Are you talking about me?
Well, you have to remember, it gets, I get a lot of the, I love what you said. I don't get a lot of the, I hate what you said. So yeah, I mean, yeah, do I catch a little bit of that banter, every once in a while of, well, what did that mean? I'm sure, but I would say the lion's share of the PwCers, just are, they agree with the statement that we have an opportunity. To me, if you went back 6 months, as an example, maybe even a year, and assets, tools, accelerators in the hands of our teammates, we're running top-down programs, picking hard problems, and changing the workflows inside our business. We were moving. But I would argue over the last 6 to 8 months, as some of the foundational learning capacities of these models have improved, the ability to accelerate is real and meaningful to the product, the services that we put into the marketplace. And so to me, it's the last 6 or 8 months where you've not had a choice. The gap between those who are simply leading in an AI-first way and re-engineering the end-to-end delivery of the work that we do across all of our businesses, the gap's widening. And so either you get on board or you're just going to be left behind.
Yeah, so you wanted to put a stake in the ground. How do you start enforcing that? Like, how do you start to say, you're doing it, you're not doing it?
Well, so think about our businesses, in the first instance. We do, broadly speaking, we operate our firm through 3 sleeves. We do a lot of assurance work, so I'll call it financial statement assurance and non-financial statement assurance that we put into the marketplace. We do a lot of tax work, compliance, and advice and planning. And then we've got a big end-to-end consulting business, from strategy to deals to business transformation to technology transformation to cyber risk controls, and so on. In the first instance, if I look inside the firm for just a minute, we do, call it 200 things inside that umbrella of 3 businesses. And across those 200 things, the mandate that is important for our business is the end-to-end transformation of each of those workflows. And so in the first instance, what I'm doing is I am measuring the progress around just how fast are we transforming. It'd be easy for someone to give me a RAG rating, red, amber, green, as it relates to that transformation, and just stamp something that isn't otherwise reflected in the product of the reinvention that I've just described. But if I begin to measure revenue per professional, margin per professional, then all of a sudden financial data, hard data, marries up with where I say I am in that transformation, and that allows me to have real information to challenge our teammates, my teammates, and myself on, are we going fast enough? Frankly, I think in the age of AI, the answer to are we going fast enough cannot be yes, because we must go faster. And if you don't build trust into what you're doing with AI, well, then you're going fast, but you're not delivering something that's truly going to change and transform your business. So all of the things that I say are, with trust as a bedrock.
Isn't it hard to build trust, though, with a workforce that knows that maybe 10s or 20,000 people won't be there, in 5 years?
Well, so think about it this way. At least from my count, every technology advancement that I can think about, at least in the moment, hasn't, by definition, eliminated work. It's created new opportunity for work. And so, yes, skills change. Yes, jobs change. But my view is, if you think about the ingenuity that exists inside, certainly the workforce at PwC, there are going to be opportunities that are created through this AI revolution that I think will keep people gainfully employed for a long, long time. That old adage, and I'm not sure who said it first, that AI won't take your job, but somebody who knows AI will. I do believe that. But my view is that AI raises the potential. It's the people who extrapolate and put that potential to work.
So do you think you'll still get to that 400,000 workforce target that you guys put out a couple of years ago?
Here's how I think about workforce. In my view, a business that does not change, enabled by AI, will need less people. A business that is changing and meeting the needs of its clients is going to need the talent of tomorrow. Will it be the same jobs of tomorrow? No, it won't. If you look at our firm today, historically, we've hired a lot of accountants, a lot of consultants, and some engineers. And if you looked at the attraction programs that we would have historically run, we ran accounting attraction programs, we ran consulting attraction programs, but we didn't run engineering attraction programs. We didn't even have what I would call the traditional engineering progression stack that would sit inside our firm. Well, we do now. And so the shape of the workforce absolutely changes. And what it means for headcount, the growth and the needs that I believe this business is able to lean into is going to create a lot of opportunity for the firm at large.
So the other sort of sacrosanct thing here in your industry is the billable hour. What happens to the billable hour when you've got like a team of agents who can build those PowerPoint presentations much faster than a first-year analyst can.
Shelley, you're not being fair to us with PowerPoint presentations. The age of PowerPoint presentations as your outcome deliverable would be long
I'm
past.
sure you do a lot more than
but I appreciate that. Here's how I think about it. If you stare at our business at large, what drives pricing in our business are the value of the outcomes that we deliver. And so if you stared into that business, the vast majority of our programs to date, of the projects that we take on for clients, are fixed fee or outcomes based, as we speak. It's not, I'm going to charge you for every hour that I consume or that I employ, times the rate that is my standard rate card. Rather, it's what is the program, what is the outcome required, over what time period must it be delivered, and what is the price that equates the value expected from the value delivered that guides our outcomes. So to me, the question will become, as we continue to bend the productivity curve, there will be a degree of compression at points in time relative to the price point from which I might sell a particular product or sell a particular service. And there could be a degree of compression, and I expect there will be. But at the same time, no doubt about it, the value contribution that I believe now the marketplace is demanding from professional services creates new opportunities which I can deliver into, which again are going to be outcomes priced. So we spend a lot of time today ensuring that we start with the outcome and we work backwards, and our clients ultimately care about the outcome delivered.
How do you model that compression?
First of all, you run lots of simulations. So if you take the way that I think about it in the moment, and I think of something called an agentic productivity multiplier. I can run simulations on the hours that are available hours for a human resource, and then based on the rate of change and transformation that AI enables, I create a multiplier effect which now shifts that human from being able to put forward 100% of their time to a multiple of that. So maybe it's 1.2 times or 1.5 times or 1.8 times. That helps me determine, what is the combination of people plus technology that is capable of delivering the outcomes that my clients otherwise require, which also then enables me to think about how do I want to price that in the future. What's the value for that product? What's the value for that service? And a great balancing element for professional services is, we clear a market every single day, and ultimately, clients pay for the outcomes that they receive, and therefore, where I press our teams and where our partners press our teams is let's maximize value delivered. Pricing takes care of itself.
That's pretty genius. You're actually going to charge more for putting all these agents to work.
You've for all of our clients out there, that would not be the way that I frame that. I would frame it this way. That we are going to do a great job aligning on what is the outcome of a program or a service offering that PwC has been engaged to deliver. We're going to deliver that program in a highly efficient way, and that there will then be a win-win on the outcome. Can I deliver yesterday's program in a more efficient way, which if I held price enables the margin that I otherwise benefit or see in my bottom line? Yes, of course I can. But over time, some of that will be shared with my end user, no different than pricing works across a product-based business as well.
Did you guys invent that metric, or is that
the APM? Yeah. I wouldn't call invention coming from me in this instance, but certainly the concept of what is the performance multiplier of technology connected to humans, that's something we believe in.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, Paul. You're a good sport. I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Please welcome John Winklereed from TPG, joined by Shelley Banjo from Semafor.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. were just grilling Paul over there on his agentic workforce. So don't worry, I'm not going to ask you about that yet. I have a far more easier subject, which is obviously the news of the day, the Iran war, and oil, energy prices, all of these shocks that are happening right now. How are you sort of digesting all of this with the markets going up and down? How are you sort of ingesting all of that into your business?
Well, look, there's a lot going on. And I think that, one of the things that is characteristic of our business is that when we engage with companies, we're usually engaged with companies along a pretty long cycle in terms of being inside, getting to know our companies. And that's true really across our asset classes. So I think that, we have a long history of living through significant changes in markets and lots of volatility and lots of different types of shocks. I think, the thing that we're trying to do is make sure that we are looking forward and that we're trying to, manage ourselves through a period where, we've got to incorporate unexpected outcomes in what we do. Hopefully when we think about how we invest, we're deep in certain sectors in the market where we really feel like we know, we have a deep capability of over a period of time of understanding certain sectors of the market, and that gives us the ability to, frankly, invest from the inside and really be able to anticipate certain unexpected outcomes as we think about the investments we're going to make. So, look, I think we're all dealing through a period of uncertainty here. We've been through it before. We have a team that is long tenured, been doing what they've been doing for a very long time, and so it's not, if I can use the expression, it's not our first rodeo.
Yeah.
So I think we're adapting to market conditions just like everybody here is.
Well, you teed me up perfectly for my next question, because as some of you guys might not know here, but John famously has a ranch and has a cutting semi-professional, and for those who might not know what that is, it's essentially when you're separating the cattle from the herd, and there's got to be a metaphor in there somewhere about private credit. Is this really what you're doing? Are you separating your bad bets from your good bets, or do we have like a much more serious credit problem here?
Well, I think I don't know if there's an analogy to ranching in this particular moment, but I think that look, again, the credit markets are deep, and there's been a moment. We're going through a moment in the credit markets here where I think that if you look at the cycles of the market that we live through, we really haven't been through severity in the credit markets since the global financial crisis. So the market has been kind of on a tear for about 15 years. There have been a few kind of blips and interruptions, but the market's sort of been on a tear. And if you look at how risk has been priced in the credit markets, we essentially have been at all-time tights and spreads. It's not that surprising, particularly when you look at private credit and the size of the market and the evolution of what's happened since the global financial crisis, where a lot of the provision of capital has moved away from banks and into the private markets. And the private markets have obviously now become a very important part of the infrastructure of the provision of capital, and it's not going back the other way. So we are going through a period now where you're seeing some levels of stress show up. It's been instigated by a number of different things, right? But we have some levels of stress showing up in certain parts of the market. But by and large, if you look at the way the market's valuing risk today, if you look at where spreads are, if you look at how capital is flowing in the market, by and large, the credit markets are actually in pretty good shape overall. We've had this shock as a result of AI causing some stress in the software part of the market and the technology part of the market. That is a certain part of the market where there is repricing going on there, and there are going to be a number of capital structures that are going to have to be addressed and reworked. But when you look at, again, how capital is flowing in the market, so far in 2026 relative to 2025, in the first quarter, high yield issuance is actually up year over year. Leveraged loan issuance is actually down year over year. Investment grade issuance is way up year over year. And so as a result, and if you look at spreads, spreads are now finally off of, if you look at spreads in the leverage part of the market, spreads are off their all-time tights, but they're not that much wider. Okay, so I think that so it's not surprising to that we would be going through some adjustment period here, all right, as a result of all of the capital that has flowed into this part of the market. We can talk about what's going on the retail side and that, and the dynamics going on there, which I think is happening for a series of reasons that I think are very explainable in a lot of respects, given expectations of liquidity and what people are buying and whether they really truly understand what they're buying. But overall, if you take a step back, the credit markets are actually in reasonable shape.
But have we just focused too much on liquidity when it's really a credit problem? Like maybe some of the loans were just bad in 2021, pre-ChatGPT, pre-AI, folks completely valuing and pricing stuff on something that they didn't even know was about to happen. Couldn't that just be a little bit bigger than, what you're saying?
Look, I mean, markets move on sort of supply and demand, right? If you look at the amount of capital that was moving into the credit markets, it's not that surprising that people were being aggressive in terms of deploying capital, that people were being aggressive in certain parts of the market, whether it's ARR lending and software, lending at too high leverage multiples. It's not that surprising when you have that much capital moving into the market. Now, if you look at prior cycles in the market, prior cycles had similar types of dynamics, not exactly the same problem, but similar types of dynamics when there was a lot of liquidity in the market, and the markets get very competitive, right? People are looking to kind of finance deals, they're looking to deploy capital. So when you think back, I mean, you can go back to the prior cycle, maybe looking at the energy markets as an example. And the energy markets went through a cycle like this where there was significant stress on the business, and lending was happening at very high multiples, and you had a lot of over-levered companies. So in this situation, if you looked at 2021, because you talked about it, right, multiples were at all-time peaks in terms of software multiples, and companies were financing at 6 and 6.5 and 7 times leverage multiples. And at the time, that was 2 times interest covered. And then rates went up, multiples came down. Not surprising, right? That we have companies now that we're toggling to pick, and companies that had to go through LMEs, and companies that had to essentially try to refinance their balance sheet, push out maturities. So if you're looking for sort of where the stress is going to be in markets today, you could look at companies that are picking and not cash paying. You can look at companies that have been through like pre-bankruptcy restructurings. And that's probably where you can find where the trouble is and where the trouble is going to be. But I think that overall, though, if you look at how the asset class is performing, the asset class overall is performing more or less like investors would have expected to perform. Again, I'm not talking about specifically funds that might be overexposed to one particular industry or over-levered companies. I'm talking about overall what the market is doing and how it's performing.
You're pretty early to call an AI bubble. Are you repricing your investment? You have, 10, 12% in software investments? Are you guys repricing that?
When you say repricing,
are you guys sort of going bit by, like sort of loan by loan, being like, is this really worth what we thought it was going to be?
Well, look, I think in our portfolios, first of all, I think when you look back at what our portfolio looks like, our exposure has been on the private equity side because we have been a portion, as you said, of our portfolio was in technology and in software. It's a contained portion of our portfolio. When you look at what we did as a firm, if you go back to sort of the 2021 cycle, and you can obviously look through and see exactly what we did. But the facts are that in 2021, when multiples were sky high, we sold every software portfolio. We sold every software company in our portfolio. Wow. Okay? In 2023, right, when valuations came down, interest rates had gone up, valuations came down, we went back into the market with a view on parts of the software market that we liked, particularly vertical software businesses, systems of record, things like that, and we started to add to our portfolio again. So what our portfolio looks like is a 2023 and later portfolio of software exposure. And in general, we like what we own. Now, there are always a couple of things. When you're in the private equity business and you're making decisions to buy companies and the environment changes, there's always things that you end up having to work harder on, work on the portfolio, try to restructure here or there in terms of your approach. There's always situations like that, but overall, that's been the history of our investing activity. Now, that's obviously not been the same for the market. If you look at the exposures that are largely in a place right now where they're going to have to be worked out, you have kind of 2021 vintage investments that is mostly where the stress is in the market. On the AI front, so we've been investing in AI now for a while, and as an example, just like where we are located in San Francisco, we are literally neighbors with all of the major AI companies. It's not surprising that we're invested in the leading 3 large language model companies. We're already invested in those companies, and we're engaged with them in doing more things as part of our business, as part of our franchise. So we've been anticipating the impact that AI would have the best we could at this point. And what we've also done is we've brought in, our reputation in the private equity business is to be very engaged with our portfolio, right? We bring a lot of operating talent, a lot of operating focus. If you look at how we've created value in our portfolio, we did a study over the last 10 years, 75% of the value creation that TPG's created in its portfolio in private equity is from revenue and EBITDA growth. Compared to the S&P 500, about looking at that, and very little as a result of that in terms of value creation is from multiple expansion. We actually underwrite and have been underwriting multiple contraction in our portfolio. If you look at the S&P 500 over the last 10 years, about 49% of the value creation in the S&P 500 is multiple expansion. So our business is different, okay, in terms of how we're creating value. We work very hard on the portfolios. We're buying companies where we believe there's secular growth, and that's what we do. So when you think about the impacts of AI and companies that can be the beneficiaries of it as an overlay to its business or as a enhancing the business model, that's something that we've been working on for a while, and we're very close to the AI, to what's happening from a capability perspective, from a technology perspective. We're very close to it, and we're incorporating it in our business. So that's how we've approached it, and we feel pretty good about the fact that I think AI over time is probably going to be more of a, we really do believe that AI and its applications, which is something that we're spending a lot of time even in our own business in terms of the capabilities that it's providing for our own people in terms of working on productivity enhancements. I mean, about 90% of our firm is engaged in using our own sort of customized model, which leverages off of OpenAI, it leverages off of Anthropic. About 90% of our own firm are using these tools. So I think
what was that number a year ago?
Probably 50.
How'd you get the adoption so quickly?
Well, we have a team working on those on the model, and a team working on applications. We roll it out internally, and then what we do is we have, not surprisingly, we have many of our younger people that are working on building, whether it's a investment committee memo or in our services practice, working on things like fund accounting or GP accounting. We let them take the product and essentially work with the product and then work with our development team to try to continue to improve the customization of the tools that we have. And so it's very bottoms up, and it happens in the natural course of things. I mean, if we weren't providing, our tool is called Samantha. If we weren't providing Samantha for our team, people would be essentially incorporating directly into using in some way either OpenAI or Anthropic tools into the business on a one-off basis or on a small team basis. So we're doing it now in terms of getting the leverage and scalability out of it for the firm.
Great. Well, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Please welcome Michelle Carliff of MetLife, Peter Orsag of Lazard, and Liz Hoffman of Semafor.
Thank you both for joining us. Thanks everyone for coming. Peter, I want to start with you. You made a fairly contrarian prediction back in January that we'd see inflation at 4% this year. That was before the war, before the energy shock. Care to update it?
I think it's looking increasingly like we will be right. This was with Adam Posen at the Peterson Institute. If you look at the price index for personal consumption expenditures out last week, covering the period before the war started, goods inflation was 0.7% in a month. And that was one of the points that we were making. And the lesson there is supply shocks take a very long time to feed through into prices. That was true for COVID. It's true with regard to tariffs. It will be true with regard to the Middle East.
Do you think if we had seen tariffs play out the way they were launched into the world a year ago and not walked back and subsequently revised, the criticism is that, well, the economists were wrong because it didn't turn out to be that bad. Do you think if it had continued to play through, we'd start to be seeing it by now?
I think we are seeing it now. That was the point, which is these things take a long time. First, you have to figure out what's happening, then you burn through your inventory, and then only then do you fully pass along prices to consumers. And the reason I cited the goods inflation from February is I think a lot of that has to do with companies finally passing through the full impact of tariffs. And again, I think we're going to see the same thing with a lag with regard to aluminum, helium, the impact of fertilizer, and a lot of other things that are now getting interrupted. Supply disruptions or supply shocks like tariffs take a long time to feed through. They don't happen like that.
One more for you. What does that mean for rates? We have a new Fed chair coming in with pretty explicit orders, but that requires consensus.
I think if inflation keeps going the way it is, 3.5%, I don't think there will be a majority I don't think you'll get a majority of governors in favor of a rate cut. And if you did cut rates in that environment, all that would happen is the yield curve would steepen. So it's sort of what are you trying to accomplish?
Michelle, higher rates are generally good for the investing business and the spread business. What does a higher for longer world look like for MetLife?
Yeah, well, I mean, we sort of lived and operated in a lower for longer environment. Generally speaking, higher rates with a steeper yield curve is constructive for the life insurance industry. MetLife is much less sensitive today to rates and markets than it was maybe a decade ago, but not totally immune. We try to run our business, with the expectation that we need to sort of have all-weather performance across environments. But directionally, rates where they are today with a steeper yield curve is more favorable.
But we have seen big financial institutions get rates very wrong. European insurers blew it. In the early 2010s, Silicon Valley Bank very famously blew it. How do you make sure that, when you have economic conditions that might suggest one path on rates, political pressures somewhere else, how do you try to hedge for that?
Yeah, we don't plan nor strategize based on any deterministic scenarios. But basically, I think our understanding is that we're going to continue to operate in a highly uncertain environment. We're not assuming that that's going to go away anytime soon. We think this is the new normal, basically. So we need to plan and strategize based on a number of scenarios, including ones that assume higher rates, including higher from where they are today.
Peter, you were Obama's budget director. You know better than almost anyone what the national debt looks like from the inside. It's now $38 trillion. Where are we today?
The publicly held debt is around 30, which is the better metric. But okay, we're quibbling.
DOGE did not touch it. We are increasing defense spending. Are we just in for the mother of all tax increases, or is the plan that AI bails us out and we grow like crazy?
What I would say is the thing that is saving the U.S. fiscal trajectory is the reserve currency status of the dollar. Without that, we would likely already have had a fiscal crisis. With it provides a kind of buffer or protection. So from that perspective, the most interesting development to be watching is what's happening in stablecoin and the ongoing role of expanding the role of the dollar, that versus things that may be threatening the role of the dollar. Because if we were to lose that special status and we have a 7 to 7.5% of GDP deficit, polarized political environment, questions over the independence of the central bank and so on, you'd be in a much more challenging situation.
Do you think that's partly why the administration has pushed stablecoins and allowed them to grow, that they are the marginal buyer of treasury bonds?
Well, there are multiple motivations, I think. I think beyond just the demand for treasuries, there is what's been called the underground empire of being able to project power by having the rails of the financial system run through the United States. And we are undergoing a transition from basically an analog type system to a digital payment stack. And I think there are multiple motivations. There's a raging debate about exactly how much demand for treasuries is added by stablecoins. And it comes back to the debate about where a dollar of stablecoins comes from. Is it just new demand from abroad, or is it being pulled out of money markets and bank deposits?
Michelle, when you are out there in the world talking to global investors, are they less enthused about owning treasuries? Do you see them walking away from dollar assets?
We're not really seeing that, at the moment. I think, to Peter's point, I think, the dollar remains the reserve currency of the world for the time being, which is a good thing, and long may it continue. So we're not seeing that, but that's not to say that it's not something that might happen down the road. I think generally speaking, the risks today, especially the tails, are much, much greater than they've ever been in the past. And I think that's sort of top of mind for a lot of investors. And, we're of the same view, basically. It's not just that we're dealing with uncertainty today, but, the tails are much fatter now when you think about risks.
Peter, you were nodding.
I agree with that. I mean, I call this contextual alpha, which is if you're in a boardroom or you're an investor, you can't just look at the alpha part, the spreadsheet of the individual investment. You have to take into account the contextual part, which is the geopolitical, the macro, the regulatory, because it has such an effect on the direct business or investment decisions, more so today than 20 years ago on average.
You've got offices, people in the Middle East. You've got clients in the Middle East. What are you hearing right now?
Look, I think I'll say two things. One is when it became apparent that the hope that there'd be a domestic uprising did not occur, at that point you were in a little bit of a box, because either the three triangles are either you're going to do a ground operation and force the outcome that you want, which isn't going to happen, or you're going to have a negotiated settlement, which probably requires Chinese involvement and empowering the Chinese on the world stage, or you're going to declare victory without the strait being fully reopened, which would just empower the Iranians. So you're sort of stuck in that triangle. And I think one of the ways of interpreting the blockade of the blockade is to try to lean more on the Chinese leg of that triangle, which I think is the most auspicious one, but it will have the effect of raising China's prominence or role in the world economy to the extent that they're the sort of backdoor power broker.
Shel, this is, Western, particularly financial firms, have rushed into the Gulf, the last 10 years, which looking back historically has been a pretty benign time in the region. You are Lebanese, not to pigeonhole you, but do you think there's something about the region that the West has failed to appreciate in their enthusiasm for deals?
We've been operating in the Gulf for over 50 years, so MetLife has been there for a very long time. There are, I think emerging markets in general come with certain risks associated with those markets. I think you have to assume that some of those risks exist. I think the challenge today is that the Gulf in particular, if you think about the UAE, it's built its economy, its brand on stability, on prosperity, on a place where that is safe, that is conducive to doing business, to investing. I wouldn't say that's shattered today, but certainly that's a bit in question. And I think therein lies the bigger question in terms of how are these economies going to recover and come out from this.
I'm just going to add one other point here, because it feels a little bit like this is a roadrunner moment where the impact of what's happening is not yet manifest itself in most economies, because the things that were on the water when this started only arrived at port a week or so ago. And you have, again, this opportunity to kind of draw down inventories temporarily. So if you roll out 3 or 4 weeks where new shipments are not arriving and you're bleeding through inventories, you will start to see much more pressure on some of the things that are already getting discussed: jet fuel, aluminum, helium, et cetera. We're just in this moment where it's not fully manifested itself yet because of the combination of when the ships that were already through the straits arrived at port and the inventory effect.
So we're off the cliff, but the gravity has not yet kicked in?
Yeah, a bit. And the longer that this goes on, the more you're going to see that kind of lagged effect play through.
The other thing that's scaring the markets is private credit. Michelle, for you, MetLife owns, I think, about $100 billion of this, originates a lot itself, does not have the big retail business that is panicking, so we can make that distinction. But do you think the underlying loans are a problem? Right now, the discussion has mostly been around retail running for the exits without a real analysis of, was everyone writing loans with their eyes closed for a few years?
Right. I don't believe there's a systemic issue. I think, we've been in a highly favorable credit environment for a very long time. I think that's normalizing, which means that, you are going to see some losses, which you would expect in a more normal credit environment. I also think there's a broad brush applied to private credit. There are pockets of private credit where competitive pressures may have resulted in more lax underwriting terms, higher leverage, and the like. So you might see some cracks there, but that's not the sign of a bubble that's about to burst, in my view. From a MetLife perspective, we invest in investment grade, high quality private credit. It's a great match for the liabilities that we generate because those tend to be long-term in nature and illiquid. So that asset class makes a lot of sense for us. And I think that's true generally for the life insurance industry.
There's been a big push between alternative asset managers and insurers. And as you say, a lot of these investments have to be investment grade to be against my life insurance policy or life insurance policy. But we've learned in the past that credit ratings are not sacrosanct. Are we going to find out in a couple of years that a lot of investments that are not quite as safe as they look have been literally put into, to fund our life insurance payouts?
Yeah, I don't believe that will be the case. I think, there will be some issues here and there, but I don't think, again, that's going to be systemic nor indicative of a broader problem. I think you will You will probably have some issues, but not to the extent that, based on what we're hearing or some are speculating. I don't believe that to be the case, certainly not for the life insurance industry.
Peter, you've been kind of a tough love truth teller to young talent on Wall Street in the last couple of years, occasionally telling them to quit whining and do the job. But do you think that AI is a cure for kind of the drudgery of being a young investment banker, or is it the thing that is actually going to take their jobs, or how are you thinking about that as you look at, what is a real knowledge economy business that relies on a lot of junior talent?
I think it could be a very exciting moment where a lot of the repetition that is no longer actually value added in terms of learning, you get to flat of the curve, you can take some of that out. You can't take all of it out. I mean, we all want pilots that can still land the plane by hand and not just rely on autopilot. But the way I look at it is you take incredibly talented, motivated people out of college or MBAs or whatever, and they are spending their time downloading data from wherever, putting it into a spreadsheet, and then moving boxes around on a PowerPoint slide. That is not the highest value added source of their time. So the faster that we can get them to master those skills and move up the value chain more into direct interaction with clients and thinking creatively, the better. So I'm hopeful. I'm a power user of the technologies myself. I think it's an amazing time to be alive, frankly, in terms of just the ongoing revolution that's occurring. And I'm hopeful that the experience for people on Wall Street will be better in 5 years than it was 15 years ago because some of the drudgery is removed.
But does that time go back to, are the kids who work for you still going to be working 80-hour weeks, just doing more stuff, or do they actually get that time
First of all,
back?
we don't call them kids anymore.
Sorry. I'm a millennial, they're all kids.
Secondly,
but does this reset the work-life balance, or is that so deeply baked into the Wall Street culture at this point, do you think?
I think anytime you're in a client service business, your time is not entirely your own. My time is not entirely my own, because when clients need you, they need you. So that boundary is always a little bit fluid. But again, I think what the technology offers the opportunity for is whatever amount of time you're working, what are you doing during that time? And how much is it adding to your skill set and is inherently interesting as opposed to repetitious?
Your fee's going to go down?
I hope not.
Michelle, MetLife is essentially in the demographics business, long-term demographics business. One slightly silly question and then a real one, but if everyone ends up on GLP-1s or the Silicon Valley bros figure out how to life hack to 100, what actually happens to the actuarial business of figuring out how long people are going to live and how much money you need to set aside for them?
It's great for our life insurance business, if that's the case.
But you pay for it on the annuity side, don't you? Isn't that the flip side of the balance sheet?
Yeah, and that's the nice thing of having a mix of life and annuity business. But look, I think the jury's still out on, clearly I think, there will be impacts and even meaningful ones, but those have not yet emerged, I would say. It's still early, one, because the access continues to be limited. I think once you see broader access, you're likely to see more impacts emerge. We don't know enough yet about any potential side effects as well. The third thing I would point to is that there's still a high percentage of people that get on those treatments but get off them fairly quickly. So we'll have to see also how persistent the use of these treatments will be. But potentially they can have a meaningful impact on longevity and obviously as a byproduct.
Apparently airlines are going to be more profitable because everyone weighs less so they can spend less on judgment. There's apparently no business that is not.
Fuel will be more expensive though.
We have Bob Jordan from Southwest on later. We will ask him about that. We just have like a minute and a half left. I guess I'd ask you both to point to a risk that you think, a specific risk that we haven't talked about that is being underpriced in the market right now. Like, where aren't we looking? Like 2 months ago, we weren't talking about oil, and then we were, and then it was fertilizer, and then it's helium. Like, where's the puck going?
I'll highlight one. I think we have not figured out the legal structure around the AI companies and the arguments that they are making to protect themselves against IP infringement today, which is that they're not copying content, they're generating new content, raises big questions about whether Section 230, which is supposed to protect passive conduits, should or should not apply to them. So that's a really meaningful question. You can make the argument it shouldn't apply to them because you need them to grow, but then where does the liability rest? Nowhere. And so there's one.
Yeah, I would say cyber, and not just because of the new model that Mythos, that Anthropic released, but broadly speaking, I think the risk today is greater than it's ever been of something, beyond just a single company getting targeted, but something much broader and much more impactful, devastating in nature. So I would say cyber.
Well, on that cheery note, we are out of time.
Thank you.
Thank you both for coming.
Thanks. Thank you.
Please welcome Barbara Humpton of USA Rare Earth, Jose Luis Manzano of Integra Capital, and Tim McDonnell of Semafor.
Thank you. Yes, you can clap. Thank you. Take a seat. Great. Oh, okay. Thanks, everybody. Settle back in. Thank you so much all for being here. And really excited to continue the conversation on energy security. So we had earlier on some of our stages today, Patrick Pouyanné from Total, and also Baker Hughes and Jacobs kind of looking at the oil and gas infrastructure. And we're going to spend a few minutes now talking a little bit more about critical minerals and kind of other important bottlenecks in kind of global energy supply chains that we need to be cognizant of. Barbara, maybe just to start with you. I mean, so everybody's been focused on the Strait of Hormuz as an oil and gas choke point, but of course rare earths even more heavily concentrated in a small number of suppliers. And what's the most important step that we should be taking now to kind of break those choke points in the critical mineral market?
The key thing we're focused on right now is building the value chain outside of China. I think people have become just painfully aware of the fact that China had controlled well over 90% of many of the critical materials that we need for everything from the future of AI to our defense industrial base. It is absolutely vital that we reclaim this market sector. And where have we seen this done before? Do we have a model for this? I don't think so. We haven't taken something that has been shipped overseas and truly built it back. So at USA Rare Earth, what we're focused on is finding the absolute best assets we can find, whether they're in the United States or whether they're outside of the United States, elsewhere. Turns out there are pockets of expertise. We're partnering, we're looking to acquire, we're looking to create supply agreements. We're working on creating an ecosystem to empower this value chain so we can scale the entire market sector.
Is that something that you think, I mean, just given the kind of lead that China has already in this market, is that something you think you can catch up fast enough to them?
Well, here's what we need to do. Question number one, what is the cost of doing nothing? Right, if people stop and do the math and realize that if they ran out of critical materials, they could shut down their own production lines for everything from our phones to our cars to the computers that are going into data centers, right? So the first realization is we have a responsibility to go do this, and we're not playing a game of competition against China. We're simply playing the game of resilience and independence. That's what we're working on.
Jose, what's the role of Latin America here? And we were speaking a little bit about backstage about how you're looking at Venezuela, where you're invested in this moment. Is Venezuela investable?
I think on the role of Latam is easy to identify in the supply chain. We are the upstream, clearly the upstream. You have untapped resources in rare earth. We have the biggest resources in lithium. Lithium is also a big part of it because for the artificial intelligence to the drones, it's lithium, 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 lithium. And the electrification still goes. Electrification has become more political, but it's still going. Electrification is going. So you have three drivers: electrification, computing, mega computing, and military use. And it's a fragmented world. It is a fragmented world. Every day we get a reminder that it is a fragmented world. And it's going to be even more fragmented. It's fragmented by politics, and it's fragmented by geography. The thing you cannot change is geography. The other thing you cannot change is geology. And in geology, LATAM has what the Western Hemisphere and the democratic countries need, which is we have the resources at the mineral level, we have the human resources to do the mining, there is expertise for that. Fortunately, now we have access to the market, we have access to capital. So I see on the integration, LATAM can be a reliable supplier for the Western world. Where Venezuela fell into this? Well, Venezuela is back. Venezuela was in a distorted commercial supply chain, interfered by their own decisions and by sanctions. So Venezuela was supplying China, not investing, and focused only in heavy oil. With the new situation in Venezuela, Venezuela can be a supplier of oil, also a supplier of gas, and they never did mining in a proper, with size. So this is also the size of the geological phenomena that created that oil, for sure created a lot of mineral wealth. So Venezuela will be back very fast. I think it is in a path of normalization. So you will start seeing Venezuela coming into the solution of a reliable supply chain for the Western Hemisphere.
You think the policy is in place yet for that to happen in Venezuela?
No, but it's being built. And I think there's a lot of hope on the Venezuela. There is hope on democratization, but it's hope on economic normalization. The money is coming back. I think it's going to be investment in oil and gas, and it's going to be investment in mining. And since there is a clear and close following from the U.S. administration, I think those minerals will come to fit Volt and all the U.S. initiative on critical mineral security. So I think, yes, I'm optimistic.
Barbara, part of the strategy for USA Rare Earths has been to partner with the U.S. government. You have $1.6 billion in federal financing, right? And there's been some other examples recently of the U.S. taking stakes in minerals companies. That's part of the strategy here. What are the risks that you see from that sort of form of state capitalism? Does that deter other private investors? Are there risks for taxpayers in that? In a way, it's a kind of model from the China playbook.
It's quite different from the model in the China playbook. What's fascinating is that the U.S. government right now is taking an economic interest in our operations at USA Rare Earth. What they've recognized is there is a national security problem that has to be solved, and our normal processes aren't solving it. I mean, even this past weekend, my husband was talking to some folks who said, oh, you know, there's going to be a deal with China. We don't have to worry about rare earths.
No.
Fool me twice, shame on me. We must solve this problem. And so the fact that the US government is stepping up, the fact that we would actually focus on US assets, US natural resources, and the taxpayers would take a vested interest in that, I think that's actually a fabulous approach. Now, they're not taking a governance role with us. It is up to us to go drive our business. And the details of the deal that we hope will sign shortly are such that we will actually build this with private investment. And the American taxpayer funds will follow the success of the growth of the business. So I think it's a very good deal for taxpayers.
And you see that capital from private finance still coming in, not being deterred by...
I see it being encouraged. Right? Now think about this. We had the opportunity to show the US government some of the best materials experts, some of the most talented investment experts in the world, in the Department of Commerce. They took a deep dive, conducted due diligence, and determined that we are worthy of investment. That helped other investors decide that, yeah, this is a safe bet for us. So you may have seen in January, when we were announcing the letter of intent with the Department of Commerce CHIPS Program Office. At the same time, they allowed us to go out and raise a PIPE, and $1.6 billion of U.S. government funding planned, $1.5 billion in investment in the company from private investors. So I'm thrilled with the kind of reaction we've seen. Here's the question. Are we beginning to see the beginning of industrial patriotism?
Industrial patriotism.
Industrial patriotism.
Interesting. What does that look like, do you think?
I think it's all of us recognizing that free market economics, executed blindly, can lead us down dangerous box canyons.
Absolutely. I was saying, you don't have an option there. I think the point is, you already seen it. You saw the disappearance of the material from the market. You cannot fix it with money. When the material is taken out of the market, you don't fix it with money. It's not about money, it's about access. That's the reason why it's called critical. If not, it would have been called expensive mineral. They're called critical mineral because it cannot be fixed with money.
Right.
You have to have a supply chain that is reliable, and you cannot put the rules. The rules are already there. There is a state activism. Most of the players are state-owned, and the supply chain has a conversion into an artificial bottleneck. Why is an artificial bottleneck? Because it's a bottleneck based on processing. It's not a bottleneck based on mineral. It's not a bottleneck based on geography. The bottleneck is based in processing. You harvest worldwide, you process in one place. And in that place, you regulate. So how you break it? You have to diversify your sources, and you have to own your processing capacity. Let's say, in Argentina, say, we can process for you, but it's a long way. If there is a war, okay, you will have to protect it. You have to have processing, and not in a single point. Not in a single point in the U.S. And my recommendation would be you have to have 4 processing, 5 processing facilities in the U.S., and you have to have several reliable suppliers. Greenland, Brazil, Argentina, maybe Venezuela, Western Africa. And it has to be, I know it's not fashion, it has to be bipartisan. No, the Lobito Railway exists because it was started before. Because this thing will take, in terms of money, trillions. You will not fix it given $1 billion here, $1 billion. This is trillions. It's going to be trillion. You have to create a strategic stock for intervention, and you have to create a reliable demand. So it will take trillions, and it will take time. You say, okay, we cut the conversations, and we rely on our own, you will go dark. It will take years. It's trillions and years. In the middle of that, diplomacy pressure. But the fragmentation is there, and the Americans already are awakened. They know they can not depend on third countries for their supply of critical minerals.
And you're
yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Okay,
we
good.
never spoke before.
We
never
that.
spoke before.
Yeah. But you have a mind meld.
Maybe we spoke the same thing.
Yeah.
No.
If we don't
No
get
comment.
started, we'll never get done.
Yep.
Now is the time.
Absolutely.
And we're moving as quickly as we can.
Jose, where do you see the most kind of the biggest bottlenecks in terms of the U.S. approach to this? We have
No, it was not accepted. Maybe we all, and part of it, enter with naivete into a globalized world regulated by WTO, and we are all good friends, and we sell to each other, and we don't put barriers, and we facilitate access to everybody. Now we know it's not like that. So the bottleneck is gone because already the Congress, executive branch, and private sector. Listen, we have not used so far U.S. government money. We've done everything private. Now to accelerate, we may need a catalyzer, but we've done everything with equity and private money. So now there is a knowledge, and there is the market. This is the market because you will have to diversify the supply chain. So it will be fixed by market forces, but you need an activist state. You need an activist state that provides leadership and puts in money and creating a strategic intervention stock and create sustainable, reliable demand,
right,
and facilitate R&D, because maybe with R&D, we shorten the time for the catch-up.
Right. Well, you were saying backstage in your student days in Argentina that people were protesting against U.S. intervention in Latin America. You're not worried about kind of any negative repercussions?
To me, it was surprising. The first thing was the Trump intervention with the Milei government. The Trump intervention with the Milei government exhibit a commitment toward the region very high, because it was in the middle of an election and it was with size. It was like 40B. Then at the end, it played very well, but you didn't know when you enter Putin in such a financial facility. So it's a big U.S. intervention that stabilized the country and allowed Milei to go with the program. And second, the opening the fight with the cartels, because it was a fight with the cartels, and then extracting Maduro.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, in the books, you say, oh, this is U.S. intervention, but the thing has stabilized Argentina and brought back Venezuela into the Western Hemisphere as a reliable supplier. So it is surprising, but it's happening. And then the fact that saying we are weak, we are dependent, there are bottlenecks, and we have to work to solve it is an act of transparency. It's saying we have a problem, but hands-on to fix it. So I think guys are doing the right thing. I don't intervene in U.S. politics. If I were in U.S. politics, I would be a Democrat, very liberal one. But on this thing, on foreign policy, on recognizing the weakness of the U.S. and dealing with the problem and trying to fix it, I think the administration is doing the right thing.
Great, thank you. Barbara, so we were speaking about your this newly announced deal with Congressional. Maybe say just a little bit about that, and are there enough other deals like this to actually available kind of in the market to actually build the type of ecosystem that you're describing?
Yeah, the team at USA Rare Earth has been, as I say, scouring the globe. Where are the experts in each stage of this value chain? Think upstream, mining and processing, midstream, metal making, downstream, magnets, et cetera. Well, it turns out that I just joined the company on the 1st of October, and that's when the company also announced the acquisition of Less Common Metals, the only scaled producer of heavy rare earth metals, alloys, and this material, strip cast, that goes into making magnets, the only scaled producer outside of China. And I'll tell you, it's been a fantastic relationship, partly because the experts there sit in the middle and could scan upstream and downstream and see who are the experts who are out there. So Frederic Carencote, he had been in Solvay in France. The south of France was once known as a center of expertise for rare earths. And here is the French government making investments not only in Less Common Metals with us, but also with Congressional. We announced last week a side-by-side minority investment, 12.5%, 12.5% between Infravia, the French investor, and ourselves to accelerate and scale what Frederic already has underway. And in very short order, he'll have a processing line in Europe that can help serve Europe as well as Asia.
Is there another one of these deals in the works that we should be watching for?
Well, processing is a very, very rare skill. So in the case of Less Common Metals, our decision has been that what we need to do at LCM is create an apprenticeship program, because we have to teach people now how to make metal. We'll be standing up metal making in Stillwater, Oklahoma, where our magnet factory is, and also in the south of France. And what the plan is actually send future practitioners to the UK to be trained in the art and the practice. There are chemists and geologists in the field today, and what we're finding as we recruit for our own processing capacity, we've got a team in Wheat Ridge, Colorado, we're building that team up, and there are people with applicable skills who can easily cross over into heavy rare earth processing. But this is a very, very fragile.
So that's the kind of next area for the company, you think, or for these processing.
We will have all the links in the value chain stood up. And if you ask me today, where do we stand? We are making magnets. We've just commissioned a line in Stillwater, Oklahoma. We're making metals. And by the way, about to announce the first yttrium produced in decades. We are standing up our own processing, and with the investment in Carrister in France, have the know-how to be able to strengthen that link in the chain. And then with our deposit at Round Top, Texas, and other deposits around the world, we have access to the materials that are needed. The whole secret here is scaling in sync so that we can actually move more quickly together.
Jose, in our last few seconds here.
It's very similar. We have found the human resources, plenty. Argentina, Brazil, PhD in nuclear science, PhD in metallurgy, PhD in geology. We found the resources on the ground through them, very motivated. It's massive. What we have found in Brazil and Argentina in rare earth is massive. We have now 4 mines in antimony between Peru and Argentina, also massive. The resources are there. Now the money is in the market. So it's time to catch up.
It's time to catch up. Great. Jose and Barbara, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome Inon Kreitz of Mattel, David Baszucki of Roblox, and Jessica Tuchel from the Wall Street Journal.
Well, we have a lot to talk about and not much time, so I want to jump into it. You have both kind of defined play in different ways in your careers and with your companies. I wanted to ask your thoughts on, what is the one fundamental truth that has not changed about how kids play? Do you want to start, Inon?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for inviting us here. It's great to be here, especially with you, Jessica. Mattel owns some of the most known brands in modern culture. And our job is to take brands that have been around for a long time, brands that are timeless, and make them timely. With the advent of technology and screen time, we still see physical play as a very important part of children's lives, of the development of children and supporting families. Our strategy is, while we continue to grow the physical play, the physical business, we're taking our brands and extend them to other domains, other verticals, film, television, location-based entertainment, and very importantly, digital, the virtual world. And in that, what we're looking to do is to extend physical play to the virtual world by creating digital experiences in games that are based on Mattel IP and create multiple touch points for fans of all ages. So, long way to say, play is a fundamental part of human behavior. It's something that everybody does. Play begins in childhood, but doesn't end there. And we're seeing a growing adult contingent, a growing adult audience that is also engaging with our brands. And this is an important part of the industry that is driving significant growth that we believe is here to stay.
Dave, would you define play differently?
No, I think it's very similar. I used to play with Hot Wheels when I was a kid, and I did something, in addition to setting up the Hot Wheels set the way you were supposed to from the instructions, we would make all of our own types of Hot Wheels sets, and they would do all interesting things. And I think, in a way, taking a step back, evolution has been pretty smart. When we get older, we have a lot of important things to do. We have to defend the tribe and gather food and, life or death types of things. And play, in a way, is this natural, user training ground for that future thing. So for me, a key point that you mentioned is the unpredictability, the ability for kids to practice making decisions, making mistakes, putting that Hot Wheels set together in the wrong way, trying other things. And I think, that's what's, there's some aspects of digital online now that I'm very optimistic about, where when you are playing hide and go seek, or whether you are building something online, you can capture a bit of that same practice of unpredictable learning in a way, in things that are somewhat open-ended.
So Ynon talked about how Mattel isn't just a physical toy company. It's doing much more than that with gaming and the movies. How do you describe Roblox to a non-gamer? Because it's not just a gaming company.
Yeah, I would say it's a little bit of just looking for when a lot of things we see in the physical world being possible to some extent to do in the digital world as well. Making houses, making amusement parks, building. When people build things online in a digital world, sometimes they can make things faster or bigger or more crazy than they could in the physical world. And a lot of times with what people build in a digital world, it's really fun to go explore it and see what it feels like, whether it's growing a garden or being in a fashion show. So I think what we're trying to capture a bit at Roblox is that notion of it's not pre-programmed, it's not linear, it's not solo, it's not being pushed at you. It's an immersive experience, somewhat like the digital analog of the physical play we do all the time.
Do you guys consider each other competitors or partners?
Strong partners. We love Roblox, we love the platform. Huge engagement, a lot of emotional connection is built on the platform. We're seeing it with our own brands. There was a Barbie game called Dreamhouse Tycoon, Barbie Dreamhouse Tycoon, that launched on the platform with zero marketing three years ago and became the #1 branded game on the platform for more than a year. We recently acquired the game. It's still one of the top highest performing games with more than 550 million visits and about 300,000 monthly users, daily active users. So a lot of engagement on the platform. And this is part of our journey. How do we take strong brands that everybody knows and continue to extend the reach and engagement of these incredible assets? The one thing that we do as part of our journey is to infuse very clear purpose into each and every one of our brands. So there's a reason why people engage with Barbie or Hot Wheels or American Girl or Masters of the Universe or Matchbox. And this is something that we do proactively. And that's why Barbie is so successful on the platform. We see people that are proactively searching for opportunities to engage with our brands. When we we launched an Uno Island on Fortnite, another platform, that became, within the first day, became a top 10 island on the platform on Fortnite among over 150,000 different islands on it. So we know that people are proactively searching for opportunities to engage with our brands, and our job is to create holistic, enriching, exciting, emotional connections with leveraging our brands across multiple platforms.
Dave, you're making a platform for creators, though. I mean, do you think the next big entertainment toy companies are going to come from creators or from brands?
It's really coming at it from both sides, I think. I think brands are avatars, stories, brands are timeless forever. And I see both traditional brands like Barbie, Hot Wheels, having a huge digital future. We also see creators on the platform coming the other way. The characters in Dress to Impress, for example, that's starting to be an interesting brand or platform, competitive fashion type game. So I think the future, they much more go back and forth. Brands created on digital platforms can go linear or physical or linear. Brands can go immersive and in both directions.
I'm interested, what is the biggest mistake you see brands make on Roblox?
I think the interesting thing is, I don't think Mattel is doing this, but some brands may try to do this, is the belief that all by myself, my brand is enough to go all the way and be something really successful. And I think this has been around in Hollywood literally for the last 20 years, as some brands have successfully made it into immersive 3D and some haven't. I think, when experiences go digital and immersive, they need both. They need the attraction of a Squid Game and the fun of an immersive experience to line up together. The market votes with their feet. They want to see both brands they love and immersive experiences with their friends. And so I think that could be a common mistake. Just my brand is so great, it's going to do it all by itself.
And I would add that we live in a world with unlimited shelf space, ubiquitous distribution, and so much competition for share of mind. It's getting harder and harder to reach the consumer and engage consumers, which is why brands, big brands, known brands with a built-in fan base are more important than ever. It doesn't guarantee success, to your point, but it gives you a very strong foundation, and in many cases, almost a different economic model in terms of user acquisition to create that initial awareness. And it doesn't end there. Now that you have a strong brand, you still need to create a very compelling experience. But owning a strong brand, you begin the journey here in terms of user acquisition and awareness. And from there, it's about making sure that the experience is authentic, is about quality, and does the right thing by the consumer. And I would add that for Mattel, the biggest change culturally was to realize that people who buy our product are not just consumers, they are fans. They are fans that have an emotional relationship with what we do, which is very different when you try to reach consumers. This is more about selling items off a shelf. When you realize that these are actually fans, it's about creating a holistic emotional relationship and across platforms. And digital is a very important part of the journey, especially nowadays. And every parent in the audience knows exactly what I'm talking about in terms of where kids spend so much of their time. But this is part of the journey and part of the holistic experience.
So you talked about, parents kind of acknowledging where kids are spending most of their time, which unfortunately is digital, at least in my house. I am curious, how do you balance parents' desire to protect their kids with also being where kids want to go?
What we've seen over the last 25 years is even with the advent of technology and screen time, the physical toy industry has grown and grown significantly. In fact, it grew in 23 out of the last 25 years, including 7% last year alone. So we still see physical play as a growth industry. What is interesting for the likes of Mattel, because you own their underlying brands, is that you can actually extend these brands beyond the physical play into the virtual world. And this is where important platforms like Roblox are so critical to our strategy in terms of growth, expansion, engagement, and continue to build that relationship.
I have a parallel to that on the digital world for parental balancing, and that is the optimal, I believe, is platforms like ours are designed for a parent who has no time to inspect the phone or the device, and by default, a lot is built in, both age checking, content guidelines, communication guidelines, all of that. And I think that's the gold standard for global digital safety, with ultimate parental control on top of that. I also believe there is an ultimate balance for young people and old people of digital and physical. And as you were talking about that, I recently, rather than getting a really big Bluetooth speaker, I went and bought a retro boombox with analog dials where I could put the tape in and the CD in. And there was something counterbalancing my digital life with that. And
did you have tapes and CDs?
Yeah, I went and bought some tapes as well. And I think it bodes well for always balancing the digital and the physical and the benefits of how they complement each other.
Where did you find tapes?
I'm on eBay. It's hard to find a cassette tape. It's like $29 for a cassette.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, platform safety has been a big topic for Roblox this year. Can you talk about, you announced some changes today. Can you talk about, like, kind of the path that brought you to these?
Yeah, I think that the exciting business aspect is really making this commitment for a global gold standard for healthy, safe, age-appropriate digital engagement. And rather than following, oh, there's a law, or, oh, this is going to happen, what do we do? Being way ahead of that. And so I think that's how we've run the company, both on text filtering, no image sharing, AI moderation. And then what we've started rolling out in the last 6 to 9 months is age check, dynamic age understanding, a lot of constraints around communication, and now content. Today, actually, it's a coincidence that we're announcing both kids accounts and select accounts. So parents literally know if I have an 8-year-old, they're going to get a kids account on Roblox, they're going to get mild content, communication's going to be locked down. So I feel we do get a lot of pressure from the media, but I think it's good pressure.
So one thing both of you are doing in different ways is, seeing and going after, I'll call them kidults, because I saw that word somewhere. Older kids, younger adults. Can you talk about what you're doing to kind of attract that audience? And is it just that your audience is aging up, or is something changing that more people are playing for longer?
Our brands are generational. Our brands go back 2 and even 3 generations. And what we're seeing now is that adults are an important part of our ecosystem. And these are adult fans, collectors that love our brands and are looking to engage with them in different ways. And this is an important part of what we're doing now. It's part of our strategy, our defined strategy, to cater and serve that important consumer base. We have our own direct-to-consumer website, Mattel Creations, that is dedicated, high-touch, curated, premium product that is priced appropriately as well, because it's quality in terms of the premium level of it. You will sell product. You can find a Hot Wheels set that we've done in partnership with Daniel Arsham, a famous artist, that you can buy for $700. We also sell Hot Wheels basic cars for $1.25. So there's obviously a big range. But whether it's the LeBron James Canvassador or a partnership that we've done with MoMA for Barbie, in the likes of Starry Night by Van Gogh, or Magic 8 Ball, Masters of the Universe, Uno, we're seeing a lot of demand and excitement by adults to collect and interact with brands that have been their own personal favorite, all the way to American Girl and different collabs that we're doing with important artists or other brands. But this is a key part of the industry. It's driving growth, and it also speaks to the fact that our brands are also cultural. They're not just about buying an item or buying a doll. It's about cultural brands that resonate with fans across different generations.
Yeah, I have a bunch of toys. I actually have a MoMA Magic 8 Ball. So we make most of our Roblox executive decisions with the Magic 8 Ball. Everyone's okay with that. But no,
we pre-program it, by the way, especially.
It's a huge part of the market, that 18 through plus lover of toys. And I think we can see it in what some of the 18 plus play and the variety of what they play. And I think it's a growing market. You probably know the numbers better than I do for that adult toy market.
And it's about creating a dedicated experience. You can't expect adult to buy the same product that a 2 or 3-year-old child would benefit. But what's so unique is that you see these brands transcend generations and age. It's about how do you curate that experience, package, and create something that is designed to meet the right audience. But these brands really speak to people across generations, which is something that is very powerful.
Interesting. Okay, we have 39 seconds left, so I'm going to a lightning round really quickly. Okay, so you guys got to go fast. So, Ynon, What's the most misunderstood thing about Gen Alpha's spending habits?
I would say always go back to the brand. It's all about brands that people know, that have an emotional relationship with. This is fundamental.
Dave, besides the US, which country is currently the most innovative market for your brand?
Whoa, every country's innovative in its own way. Content, different types of content, different types of spending. It's like it's a small world at Disneyland. Every country pushing.
Okay, last question.
Oh, by the way, that was a joke about the magic 8-ball for investors.
What was the first thing you ever sold as a kid, Dave?
What?
What was the first thing you ever sold as a kid?
That I ever sold as a kid, I'm sure it was a lemonade stand or something.
Inan?
A surfboard.
Nice. Okay, thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Welcome Ermenegildo Zegna of the Ermenegildo Zegna Group and Imran Ahmed from Business of Fashion.
Good afternoon. Well, we have gone from AI to genomics to energy, but now we've arrived to the industry that Mr. Zegna and I immerse ourselves in every single day, which is the global fashion business. A business that's not often taken seriously in quarters like these, but hopefully with this conversation we'll be able to demonstrate to you just how important this $2.5 trillion industry is. Mr. Zegna, thank you for joining me here today. We've been hearing, as I said, about all of the change happening in the global economy. We've got a tumultuous situation at the moment with the war in the Middle East and everything that's done to oil prices. We have the rise of artificial intelligence. We have a very uncertain economic outlook. And at a time like this, leaders like you often want to hold on tighter to the reins. But you did the opposite. Last year, you stepped back from your day-to-day role as CEO, and you handed over the reins to the next generation, to your sons, Angelo and Eduardo, and to a new CEO of the group. Why was it okay for you to make such a big change when it seems like everything in the world is changing?
Good question. Thank you, Imran. Nice to be here, ladies and gentlemen. I think it was an obvious decision. I turned 70 a few months ago, and I felt responsible that I had to move forward, not backward. And I was privileged that I had two brilliant sons that are there for meritocracy, not just because they are Zegna children. And I had a very good CFO that I appointed a group chairman. And I think it came at the right time, because I'm still healthy and I'm still very energetic, and I think can contribute really for the future of my brand, family, and shareholder. I mean, we are a public company. I mean, we went IPO in New York in December 21, and I think that we made this step thinking forward to the family and to the brands, because we have three brands today. We have Zegna, Tom Ford, and Thom Browne. So we feel we are half American, because actually about 40% of our portfolio are to luxury top brands that we enjoy very much so. So I think that is right timing. Took me 2 years to figure it out. And finally, I picked the internal decision, which makes a lot of sense. And I must say, I'm at the 4th month of this experience, and we are doing jolly good.
So it's only 4 months in.
4 months, you know. We started January 1st, was the D-Day, and I must say, so far, so good.
I know you, Gildo, and I know you are very, very hands-on with your business. So when you're sitting back and you're, observing everything that's happening, given everything that's going on in the world, we're talking about rethinking global business. How are you advising Angelo, Eduardo, the new CEO? How are you advising them to navigate a period like this?
First of all, be true to your value. Second, stay the course. I think we have a very clear trajectory for our group and for our brand. And, just keep that vision going. Be patient. I think that listen, but once you decide to go, execute fast. I think that speed today, with the help of technology, with the right team of people, is crucial to make it happen. So think slow, but act fast. These, to me, are the most important criteria for being successful.
In 21, right around the time that you IPO'd the business in New York, as you mentioned, the luxury industry was riding a wave of growth unlike anything we've seen in a very long time. Plus 20, plus 30% growth, right? Just this morning, LVMH announced that its fashion and leather goods business has contracted for yet another quarter, minus 2%. Meanwhile, one of your close competitors, Mr. Cucinelli, Brunello Cucinelli, reported sales plus 14%. What is separating, do you think, the companies that are continuing to perform in a luxury market that's contracting from those who are struggling to grow?
First of all, I can only speak highly of the LVMH group, because if there is luxury, it's mainly thanks to them.
I know, but you're being diplomatic, though, Mr. Zegna.
No. I just want to be fair, because they're very strong and very capable. So
but they're shrinking.
But
so what does that mean?
They have like 72 brands. So and so I think it's it's pretty challenging. I mean, to manage
isolated that number just to the fashion and leather goods division, which contracted by 2%. There's a big difference between shrinking by 2% and growing by 14%. What's the difference?
Yeah. Anyhow, I think that they're going to come back. So, but do not focus on that. Let's focus on the differences. I think that in order to be resilient, you have to be very focused, and you have to have a clear brand strategy, and you don't have to be as logo-driven as you used to be, and you have to be more attent on your the perception of the pricing, and I think all this it brings a new formula together, and so you have to be able to manage. I must say that for Zegna's sake, we are fortunate because we are in the style luxury. And I think that we are developing a couple of iconic products. One I'm wearing today that is jolly good, not only for the loyal customer, but also for the young customer. Yeah. And so, I mean, getting to a new customer and satisfy and being able to provide experiences. I think that the game changer for Zegna is that we went from product to experiencing.
Yeah.
And to me, this is very, very important. And I think that coming out with a product that are highly innovative, they are different from most of the other brands, and they are produced at home. I mean, one peculiarity of our company, our group, is that we are a supply chain fully integrated. Yeah. I like to go from ship to shop. Yeah. We are the only luxury company that fully integrated. As a matter of fact, more than 60% of the goods that we produce is produced at home, most of them in Italy.
Okay, well, back to the results.
This is a very important
I want to go back to the results. So this morning when LVMH reported the results, one of the things they pointed to that was a headwind that they faced was the war in the Middle East. You told me once that the store in Dubai Mall, the Zegna store in Dubai Mall, was your #1 store in the world. How are you responding to, how is your business performing in light of what's happening in that part of the world?
Surely, with most of you, I think that we are for peace, and we hope that the conflict will end quickly. After having said that, Middle East has been one of the most growing areas for the group.
Yeah.
Before COVID, Middle East was 3%. Today, for Zegna brand, is close to 9%.
Yeah.
So it's a big chunk. So
You mean of total sales?
Of total sales.
Yeah.
So I think that it's important, and I think that it will come back. In the meantime, you have to figure out what to do. And
So what are you doing?
well, I think that we have other important countries. Surely, United States is one, and we are doing a good job, and we are spending there. We have China, that I think China is has slowed down in the past couple of years, but I think that it reached a plateau, and I think it's the new normal. So I think that we can do better in China. And then there are areas that we still have to improve. Japan, Korea, Southeast Asia, and Latin America. Zegna has been a pioneer, not only in China, but also in Latin America in the 70s. And so it's a small area, but I think that we are doing well. So the other thing is that we are doing is being innovative with the product you create. And so we created this personalization effect. We have been really quite pioneer in made-to-order product, and now we created this concept of Villa Zegna that we offer an experience to our world customer, what we call the Zegna friend, with product that they cannot find in the stores, all personalized. We go from bespoke, to more affordable product, and I think this is like a club. So I think that all that helps.
What do you consider affordable?
I would say affordable is product that are around $1,000.
Yeah.
But I just want to remind you, Zegna is costly, but it's not expensive. Let me just add one thing,
okay.
Because you come and visit our industries. Zegna is a luxury brand, but in the industry of fashion. You come and visit our factory in the mountain, our wool mill, under 16 years old, you understand why we are costly. I'm leaving you with this. And the other thing, sustainability. Once a competitor said, listen, what are you talking about? You are the most sustainable brand in the world because you last forever.
Shop. Yeah.
No, but not ship to shop. You last forever.
Yeah.
I still have coats of my grandpa, 600 grams, that are modern and fresh as ever. So I think this is the world we are in.
All of these things are elements that customers, maybe some of your customers in the room, take into account when they purchase a product, whether it be, a product at Zegna or elsewhere. But there is a lot of conversation about pricing in the luxury industry and how, in some places the inflation in prices in our industry is up 60, 70, 80, 90%. What do you think about the value that is really being offered to customers now with prices that have gone up so much?
I think I can't talk for our own brand. I think that since we've been public company, we had 3 brands. We united 3 brands. We consolidated, and we came out with only one brand, Zegna. And we decided to go up by investing more in quality, more in personalization.
How much? By what percentage did your prices go up, roughly?
But it's hard to compare because we don't have similar product.
Yeah.
And I just say that the perception of Zegna in terms of pricing is fair. We are prudent, but in moments in which you have tariff, you have forex, you have inflation, you have to convert part of that. However, I think that you have to look at the productivity side. I think artificial intelligence could help in improving long-term the productivity. And so you have to be open-minded and don't think that artificial intelligence will cut jobs. I think will add new jobs and will improve productivity. So I think that you have to be smart in finding new ways to go about, knowing that price is an important part of the equation. So be responsible in how you can increase pricing on your product.
All right. We only have about 45 seconds left. Your grandfather founded this company in 1910. You know, if he were still around, what do you think he would make of the company that you've handed over to your son?
You would be very proud that we are now the fourth generation.
4 generations.
Fourth generation. Yeah. And we have about 20 kids. Thank you. We have about 20 kids that hopefully they're going to make the 5th generation. So keep going and be true to your values. This is what you would be very fond of.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Imran.
Welcome Senator Rick Scott and Burgess Everett of Semafor.
Afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much to Rick Scott, the senior senator from Florida, for being here. He's kind of
not that I'm that old.
Yeah, he's kind of the rabble-rousing.
Marco was the senior senator before.
He was, and younger than you, right? It doesn't say anything.
A couple years.
When you were back in Florida over the recess, did you bump into TMZ?
No, I did go to Disney, though. I took my granddaughter's turning, I have one granddaughter. She's turning 6, so we went there. So we made sure TMZ, we made it easier for them. We posted a picture so that way they didn't have to try to find me.
Right, that's probably a pretty good excuse for being.
Only 7 million people saw it.
Do you think, though, was it a mistake for Congress to go on that recess, do you think?
Yeah.
Why?
Because we should stay up here until we get our job done. Homeland Security is not funded, right? Now, the mistake was why we funded all this other stuff and didn't fund Homeland Security, gave the Democrats all their earmarks and didn't fund Homeland Security. Doesn't make any sense. So we shouldn't, no, I don't think we should be on recess.
And did you consider opposing the bill that passed the Senate funding the Department of Homeland Security? Is that something that, because it sounds like you're not a huge fan of the way this all went down.
So in January,
yeah.
I didn't vote for that.
Right.
I opposed that because we should never done it that way. You should fund all the government if you're going to fund it. Now, I don't want to vote for this stuff anyway because we're running $2 trillion deficits. There's a day of reckoning for $2 trillion deficits, and it's going to happen. It's just when it happens. So I didn't support that, and I didn't support going forward without funding Border Patrol or ICE. It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Here's what should make you mad. I mean, you just saw this little 15-year-old boy. I got married at 19, so I've got a bunch of grandkids. I have 7 with another one on the way. But I've got a 15-year-old boy dies in Missouri. Yeah, some illegal alien lured him into something and murdered him. I mean, no one cares. I mean, they're killing our kids. 75%, Fairfax County. Is this Fairfax County?
We're in D.C. right now.
Okay, so Fairfax County, 75% of the murder suspects are illegal aliens. 75%, right? And now where I live I live in Naples, but Fort Myers, Florida, a lady was just filling up gas, and illegal alien last week came with a hammer and broke into her car first, and then pummeled her with a hammer and killed her. I mean, and it's like the Democrats, doesn't.
So the plan to deal with this seems to be to pass a standalone immigration enforcement funding bill through reconciliation, which is not a process.
Which basically is getting rid of the filibuster. That's all it's doing, right?
So do you oppose that plan? Are you going to have a hard time voting for that? I mean, what do you?
No, I'll vote for funding it if you put it all together. I think we should put it all together, or know that you're going to pass both.
Right.
So you have to pass Border Patrol and ICE. I mean, think ICE is the one that's arresting the people that are killing our kids, or raping our daughters and our wives and our grandkids. So they've got to all be funded together. Now, I don't care if it's 2 bills that we're funding them at the same time, but as long as they've got to be funded.
As long as both these bills move funding all of the Department of Homeland Security, you'll support that plan.
Yeah.
You just mentioned the filibuster.
We got to get rid of the filibuster.
You used to defend the filibuster, though, didn't you?
So yeah, but it doesn't work anymore. So remember this: the filibuster, the Senate was never set up for more than a majority to pass legislation or pass nomination. It was a stop debate, right? And so all the filibuster was supposed to stop debate. Clarence Thomas, I think, got 52 votes. Today, he would never, until they had to change the rules on the filibuster for that, right? So we keep changing the filibuster because one party or the other, and sometimes Republicans have done it. They've used the filibuster process to say, oh no, we're not even going to have a conversation about that. We're not going to pass a nomination, or we're not going to pass a bill. It doesn't make sense. Make people talk, allow them to give their talk, and then we vote. So
you just mentioned the deficit too. Do you think you should pay for these bills?
Pay for everything. Well, when I was governor, by the way, here...
Your party leaders don't want to do that, though, it sounds like, at this point.
I do. So I'm a business guy. My first business was a donut shop when I was 22, got out of the Navy. I built the largest hospital company. I built a bunch of manufacturing companies. Guess what? They made money. We balanced our budgets. We paid down our debt. When I became governor of Florida, states don't balance their budget as a general rule. They borrow money. Florida had not balanced its budget when I got elected in 2010, but once in 40 years. They said, well, they said, well, I'm going to balance a budget. They said, you can't balance a budget. We're running deficits. I said, tell me what the revenues are going to be. We will not spend more than that. Guess what? We did. That's what we balanced a budget every year, and we paid off a third of the debt. You can do the same thing up here. If we went back to 2019 spending levels up here, right, we'd be balanced. We've had a 50% increase in spending and a 2% increase in population.
But you have leverage here, right? Like, why not hold out your vote and say we need to pay for this stuff?
Well, I only got called the White House 5 times on the big beautiful bill because they love because I wanted to. I mean, think about it. We passed the big beautiful bill. It was great from the standpoint of taxes. I mean, we needed to do that. We didn't need a $4.5 trillion tax increase. But guess what? We should have reduced spending dramatically. Fix these programs that don't work. Crack down all the fraud. Every government program is full of fraud. They all are. Okay? And there's no accountability in your government. You guys are spending all your taxes, okay, and no one's being held accountable. So I tried my best. So
what about the Iran war? It sounds like the White House is going to ask you all for $100 billion, maybe more.
We don't have. Yeah, it could be more. We don't have actually a number. First off, I think our federal government ought to. In life, you sort of have to prioritize. You don't have unlimited resources typically. I think we ought to prioritize our spending. The first dollars that I think our federal government should spend is all on defending our freedoms. That's the most important thing we do. Okay, before we do anything else, that's what we ought to be doing. So I support our military. I don't know what the number should be, and I think we've got to get more. We got to get smarter about it. I think we need to have more drone technology and less big gigantic programs.
Should those come with spending cuts too?
If you can find what's hard in this job is getting the best information to make a good decision.
Do you think all of this should be rolled all together in one bill? Another big, beautiful bill?
It won't happen then.
That won't happen? No. So you think this...
I think if we're going to get something done, what we're going to do is we'll do a very small bill just on Border Patrol and ICE.
Yeah.
And then separately have the fight over the supplement on the military.
How do you feel like the war in Iran, which is sort of in a ceasefire right now, how do you feel like this is going? Should the U.S. wrap this up, get out of there now, or do you think there's more to do there?
I appreciate that Trump's trying to get rid of the nuclear weapons. I don't want to die by a nuclear weapon from Iran. They wanted to kill us. I mean, this appeasement of bullies. I don't know if in your life if that's worked for you guys. It's never worked for me. And so they wanted to kill us. So they're getting close to being in a position to kill us, and they basically have been killing Americans. So I think what Trump did is the right thing. Now, I think he has to get them in a position that they don't have the ability to do nuclear weapons or ballistic missiles. I think that's where we have to go. I don't know what the right approach is going to be. I think blocking the Strait of Hormuz is fine from my standpoint. If no oil ever goes to China again and their economy is destroyed, that would be a really wonderful day for me.
The president said the Pope is weak on nuclear weapons. Do you think that was an appropriate comment? I mean, what did you make of that?
I don't understand. I don't know about that, if he is. I've not talked to the Pope about it. His brother lives in Florida, by the way. I don't know if he's weak. But I think people have who wants war? Nobody wants war, right?
Right.
Like, maybe Putin does, but most people don't want war. War is hell. But if somebody wants to kill you,
I think some people were upset that the president went after the Pope. Do you have those concerns?
I didn't see exactly what he said. I mean, he has a different social media presence than I do.
Yeah. You wouldn't have said that, is what you're trying to say.
Actually, I used to do deals with the Pope. When I was in the hospital business, whenever their hospital started losing money, they would sell them to me. No margin, no mission. So I always had to have the Pope sign off on them. So I don't know, I always had to work with the Vatican.
We've seen the president.
My experience, I'm a business guy. I did deals, right?
Right.
So my approach is always to go talk to people and see if that works.
Right. So no, you don't really have much to add to the president's comment about the Pope, is what you're saying.
I didn't see it.
Okay.
That's the nicest answer.
Sure. We've seen the president go into Venezuela, Iran. What about Cuba? Do you think the United States should take some action?
Well, first
there?
off, we're not where we need to be yet in Venezuela. I mean, we did the right thing by taking Maduro out.
Sure.
Elsie Rodriguez is not the president. She was Maduro's, vice president. She ran the torture chambers, so she's a despicable person, right? I think the approach that Trump and Marco have taken has an opportunity for success, but we're not there. We don't have a free and fair election yet, but I think we have every opportunity to be hopeful. On Cuba, a different issue. Diaz-Canel is not the power structure in Cuba. Raul Castro still has all the power. So now they act like it's the blockades making all the impact. No, the problem they have is they have no money left. Now, if somebody could give them some free stuff, right? They could do trade for something, but they are broke, and so it's finally after 60 plus years it's caught up with them. So hopefully that's a country where the public has been willing to protest. Hopefully they will show up. Diaz-Canel is going on some be nice to media tour, and he allowed some political prisoners. He allowed prisoners out, but not political prisoners. There's a 16-year-old boy in Cuba right now that's in prison. You know why? Because he complained that his family didn't have electricity. That's political. Your family doesn't have electricity, you go do a protest, and so you're put in jail the rest of your life. So these people are despicable. So I think we need to blockade the oil, and I'm hopeful for a regime change.
So you didn't like that one of these tankers got into Cuba recently?
No.
So you'd like to see a total blockade?
But I think what Trump is trying to do, I think they're trying to make sure there's not a humanitarian crisis in the people. So, but if you look at what Marco and they have done, they've allowed oil to go into businesses, but not to the government.
Right.
Now, the tanker was different.
Right. Yeah. But you're not saying we need to send troops in there or initiate the regime change.
And Trump doesn't put troops on the ground.
Right.
On the ground.
Right. I think some people have maybe been trying to say, hey, we need to turn our attention to Cuba, but it sounds like you're advocating for an approach that could lead to regime change, but is not like an active.
I'm optimistic. We're better off than we were. Having Obama go down and watch a baseball game didn't work.
Right.
Appeasement has never worked anywhere.
Can I go back to the filibuster question? How frustrated are you that the Save America Act, which is a voter ID bill, is stuck in the Senate?
It's stuck. So I've been in the Senate for 7 years. This bill is the most popular bill for conservatives and Democrats and independents of anything I've been in 7 years. It's like lock the clock in Florida's, don't have, go back and keep daylight savings time. It's unbelievably popular with everybody. So the fact that this is not passing is pretty frustrating. I think the only way it's going to pass is if we get rid of the filibuster, because Democrats are not going to do it.
Is Leader Thune doing enough to try to do that? He says there aren't the votes.
I think Thune's got a tough job. I tried to get the job. I think it's a tough job. I think he's trying his best. He's got to, you got to get 50 people to get along and go agree with you at the minimum, right? So he's not there yet. So, but I think he's trying.
Will you try to get the job again? Would you consider challenging him?
Oh, I don't know.
No answer on that. Is this something you thought about?
I've done it twice. I ran against McConnell because I didn't like the way the Senate was running. I didn't realize when I came up here my job was to just vote whatever somebody tells me how to vote. I thought I read the Constitution and I was supposed to represent Florida. I didn't realize I should have read something else. And so people got frustrated with me because I kept saying, that's not what I said in my campaign, and I actually represent Florida. Thune doesn't do that. I'm very appreciative that he's trying to let people represent their states.
Okay.
The prior leader didn't really do that.
Okay. Well, that's all the time we have for Senator Rick Scott. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Thanks, sir. You can go ahead.
Thank you for attending today's live journalism, and to our partners Citadel Securities and Salesforce. We hope to see you again tomorrow morning starting at 9 a.m. here at the Conrad.